Welcome to this story, where you'll embark on a peaceful voyage aboard a Viking longship, drifting through the calm and endless sea beneath a vast starry sky. Experience the serene stillness of the night as the watchmen stand vigilant, their quiet presence offering safety and comfort. The gentle motion of the ship, the rhythmic splash of the waves, and the soft creak of the wood create a symphony of tranquility, inviting you into deep relaxation. As you journey with the crew, feel the soothing embrace of nature's rhythms, the vastness of the ocean offering a sense of timeless peace. Let the calm atmosphere of the longship carry you into restful dreams or a refreshing new day, connected to the enduring strength of those who sailed before, surrounded by the silence and beauty of the sea and sky. The longship glides silently through the vast, dark sea, its sturdy wooden hull rising and falling gently with the rhythm of the calm waves. Beneath a sky adorned with countless stars that twinkle softly, their shimmering light casting delicate reflections across the dark, rippling waters. The air is crisp and refreshing, carrying the mingled scents of salt water and pine, enveloping the vessel and its crew in a comforting embrace, inviting deep relaxation and peaceful calm. On deck, the watchmen stand quietly, cloaked warmly against the chill, their eyes steady and vigilant as they scan the horizon with practiced focus, their breaths slow and even, rising in delicate clouds that dissolve softly into the night air. The ship creaks gently beneath their feet, responding to the subtle swell of the ocean, while the sails hang still, waiting patiently for the morning wind to fill them once again and carry the longship onward through the endless expanse. Soft rustling of rigging blends harmoniously with a gentle splash of waves against the hull, composing a soothing symphony that wraps the vessel in a cocoon of peaceful solitude. Below deck, the crew sleeps deeply, their breathing slow and steady, lulled by the steady rocking of the vessel and the warm glow of flickering lanterns casting soft shadows on timber walls. Above, the stars wheel silently across the sky, their ancient light a constant companion that guides the voyage through the vast darkness, reminding all aboard of the endless cycles of nature and time. As the night stretches on, the stillness of the sea deepens, and the sense of isolation becomes more pronounced, yet the watchmen stand firm, their eyes never straying too far from the horizon. Their vigil is both a duty and a connection to the timeless nature of the sea, where every wave and every gust of wind carries with it a sense of shared history, stretching back through generations of sailors who have crossed these waters. Time feels suspended in this moment, with no rush or urgency, just the gentle passage of the longship through the night. The soft creaks of the ship and the quiet splash of the waves against the hull become a lullaby that soothes the mind and soul, offering a sanctuary from the demands of the waking world. The watchmen, though vigilant, are also at peace, their steady presence a reminder that in the vast solitude of the ocean, they are never truly alone. Their thoughts, though focused on their duty, occasionally drift to the warmth of hearth fires, in distant villages, or the faces of loved ones waiting at home. Yet in this moment, they are part of something larger, something timeless, their connection to the sea and the stars, a bond that transcends time and place. As the night deepens, the world feels vast and eternal, a space where past, present, and future exist in harmony, carried forward by the steady rhythm of the longship's journey. The stars, the sea, the wind, and the watchmen are all woven together, in a tapestry of peace, each element playing its part in this tranquil voyage. The stillness of the night wraps itself around the ship like a blanket, and the gentle rocking of the vessel becomes a steady pulse, a heartbeat that mirrors the rhythm of the ocean itself. In this sacred pause, time slows, and the only thing that matters is the quiet strength of the ship, the watchman, and the eternal sea, guiding them onward through the night. The longship continues its steady voyage through the endless sea, the gentle rise and fall of the wooden hull, a constant companion as the waves cradle the vessel in a rhythmic embrace. The sky above stretches infinitely, a canvas of deep indigo, dotted with stars that shimmer softly, casting their pale light over the vast expanse of water. The cool night air carries the scent of salt and pine, mingling with the warmth of the ship's timbers, offering a comforting contrast to the chill that settles over the deck. The watchmen stand at their posts, their cloaks drawn tightly against the cold, eyes scanning the horizon with quiet diligence. Their movements are measured, deliberate, as they monitor the open sea, ever alert for any sign of land or distant ships. The night feels vast and peaceful, the quiet hum of the longship's progress through the water, a soothing presence in the stillness. Far below, the crew remains undisturbed in their slumber, the soft murmurs of their breathing blending with the creaking of the ship's timbers and the whispering of the wind through the rigging. The warm glow of lanterns below deck flickers faintly through the small openings in the ship, casting soft shadows on the timber walls, while the gentle motion of the vessel lulls them into a deeper rest. Above, the stars wheel steadily across the heavens, their ancient light serving as a constant reminder of the enduring rhythms of the sea and the passage of time. The watchman's vigilance is unbroken, yet their thoughts drift in the quiet moments between their duties. They think of home, of loved ones, of the days before they set sail on this endless journey. Yet the sea calls them back, its vastness offering both comfort and challenge. The rhythm of the waves, the steady rocking of the ship, the creaks of the timbers, these sounds have become their constant companions, a backdrop to the stillness of the night. The silence is not oppressive. Rather, it is peaceful, inviting reflection and quiet contemplation. The longship cuts through the water with grace, the sails hanging still in the gentle breeze, waiting for the morning wind to fill them and carry the ship forward once more. Time seems to slow in these moments, the world feeling vast and suspended, yet also deeply connected. The stars above, the sea below, the watchman on deck, and the crew below are all part of the same quiet rhythm, a harmony that has existed for as long as men have sailed the oceans. In this sacred stillness, there is no rush, no urgency, only the steady progress of the longship through the night. The moon, now rising higher in the sky, casts a soft glow across the water, illuminating the rippling surface in silver light. The waves lap gently against the ship's hull, their soft splash a lullaby for the soul, carrying the longship forward into the quiet expanse of the sea. The watchmen continue their duties, their presence steady and unwavering, a silent promise to the crew that they are safe in this peaceful moment. The longship, though small in the vastness of the ocean, is a home, a sanctuary amid the endless waves. And as the night deepens, the bond between the ship, the watchman, and the sea grows stronger, a reminder that they are part of something much greater, connected to the eternal rhythms of nature. The longship glides effortlessly through the calm waters of the darkened sea, the soft rhythm of its wooden hull cutting through the gentle swells as the watchmen stand sentinel on the deck, their eyes fixed on the horizon, unblinking, alert. Above them, the night sky stretches endlessly, an expanse of deep, dark blue speckled with countless stars, each one a distant beacon, their ancient light washing over the ship, offering both guidance and solace. The cool night air carries the unmistakable scent of salt water and pine, the faintest trace of damp earth lingering in the breeze, mingling with the warmth of the timber beneath their feet. The watchmen's cloaks ripple softly in the breeze. As they move across the deck, their steady footsteps almost lost beneath the soft creaking of the ship's wooden frame, a living, breathing entity itself. The night feels vast and unyielding, an endless stretch of water beneath an endless sky. And yet, In this infinite expanse, the longship is home. The watchmen breathe deeply, their breaths forming faint clouds that dissipate into the cool air, their gaze sweeping over the open sea as they maintain their vigilant post. There is no rush, no urgency, only the calm, steady passage of time as the longship continues its journey. It sails still and waiting for the first light of dawn to stir the winds once more. Below deck, the crew sleeps soundly, their breathing slow and rhythmic, lulled by the gentle rocking of the ship and the warmth of the lanterns casting flickering shadows across the timber walls. The soft, steady creak of the ship is a constant companion, the sound of life on the sea, the pulse of the vessel that carries the crew toward their distant destination. Though the night is long and quiet, it is never lonely. The stars wheel overhead, their constant presence a reminder that the voyage is part of something much larger, a journey that stretches back through the ages, across the great oceans, a journey undertaken by countless souls before them. The silence on the ship is not oppressive. Instead, it is peaceful, meditative, inviting the watchmen to reflect on the passage of time and the sacred duty they have to remain vigilant to safeguard their comrades below and the longship itself. The sea offers no promises, no assurances, yet there is a beauty in its vastness, in its silence. The watchmen know that their task is not just to look for danger, but to witness the quiet beauty of the night, to experience the stillness and this peace that come with being far from the world, on the open water, beneath a sky that has seen the rise and fall of civilizations. The gentle movement of the longship, the slow creak of the timbers, the soft splash of the waves, all of these sounds become part of the night's symphony, a reminder that time is moving forward, but there is no need to hurry. The watchmen's eyes, accustomed to the darkness, adjust slowly as they survey the horizon, their thoughts wandering for a moment to distant lands and loved ones, but always returning to the task at hand. The longship continues its steady passage through the night, its course guided by the stars above and the rhythm of the sea below. The night is long, but the watchmen are unwavering, their dedication a silent testament to the bond they share with the sea, the ship, and each other. As the hours pass, the soft, steady cadence of the ship's motion becomes a lullaby for the mind, inviting a deep, restful calm, while the watchmen remain steadfast, their silent vigil a symbol of endurance and duty, protecting the ship, they, crew, and the sacred rhythm of the journey. The ocean stretches out before them, vast and unknowable, but in this moment, under the watchful eyes of the stars, there is peace, and the longship sails on, gliding effortlessly through the night. The longship sails smoothly across the tranquil sea, its sturdy hull cutting through the water with grace as the watchmen continue their steady vigil on the deck, eyes trained on the dark horizon that stretches endlessly before them. The moon, now rising higher in the sky, casts a soft silver glow over the waves, creating a shimmering path of light that seems to lead the way through the night. The sky above is a deep, velvety blue, speckled with countless stars that twinkle faintly, their ancient light a constant presence, a reminder of the vastness of the world and the passage of time. The air is cool, crisp, and filled with the familiar scent of salt water and pine, the refreshing breeze carrying with it the promise of new journeys and distant lands. The watchmen, cloaked against the chill of the night, stand tall and still, their breath rising in gentle clouds that dissolve into the cool night air. Their eyes flicker from one point on the horizon to the next, watching for any signs of land or ships, their thoughts calm and focused, attuned to the rhythm of the sea and the world around them. The ship creaks softly beneath their feet, responding to the steady movement of the ocean, the timbers groaning slightly as they adjust to the motion of the water. The soft rustling of the rigging, the faint whisper of the sails in the wind, and the rhythmic splash of the waves against the ship's hull compose a quiet symphony that lulls the mind into a state of peaceful calm. Below deck, the crew sleeps soundly, their deep, steady breaths blending with the creaks and groans of the ship, the soft glow of lanterns casting fleeting shadows on the timber walls. The gentle rocking of the longship, in perfect harmony with the sea, serves as a lullaby, inviting the crew to rest and rejuvenate for the journey ahead. In this moment, there is no rush. Time seems to stretch, and the steady passage of the night offers a sense of peace, a reminder that life on the sea is measured not by hours or minutes, but by the steady rhythm of the waves and the silent passage of time. The watchmen, though ever alert, are not disturbed by the quiet hours that pass. Instead, they embrace the stillness, finding solace in the routine of their duty, in the way the ship moves through the water with ease, as though it has always been a part of this great expanse. The gentle wind picks up slightly, filling the sails with a soft, reassuring sound as the longship glides on, its course steady and true. The ocean stretches out before them, endless and infinite, a vast canvas of water and sky, and in this moment, the watchmen feel a deep connection to it all: the ship, the sea, the stars, and the wind. Each element seems to be in perfect harmony, working together in silent collaboration to carry the longship forward, a dance of nature that has existed for as long as the sea itself. As the night deepens, the feeling of peace grows stronger, wrapping itself around the ship and all aboard like a comforting blanket. The stillness of the world is broken only by the soft sound of the wind and the rhythmic splash of the waves, and in this quiet there is room for reflection. The watchman's thoughts drift slowly, not to distant shores or lands far away, but to the simple peace of the moment, to the comforting embrace of the sea and the stars that have guided travelers for centuries. The longship continues on, unhurried, its course steady, while the night passes slowly, each hour marked not by the ticking of a clock, but by the slow, rhythmic dance of the ocean and the wind. In the vastness of the sea, time seems to stand still, and the watchmen are reminded that, despite the uncertainty and challenges that lie ahead, they are exactly where they need to be, embraced by the quiet majesty of the ocean. As the gentle wind whispers through the rigging and the waves lap softly against the hull, the longship continues its journey, steady and true, a symbol of endurance and peace in the vast, uncharted world of the sea. The longship sails quietly through the vast, dark sea, its wooden hull gently cutting through the water with rhythmic precision, each motion a testament to the craftsmanship that has gone into its making. The sky above stretches endlessly, a dark expanse that seems to swallow the stars, leaving only the faintest gleam of distant lights to mark the presence of the heavens above. The moon, high in the sky, casts a soft glow over the water, illuminating the crests of the waves that shimmer in the pale light, as though each ripple is a tiny reflection of the infinite. The watchmen, still as statues, stand in their positions on the deck, their eyes trained on the horizon, searching for any sign of life, any shift in the pattern of the ocean. There is no hurry, no rush, only the slow, steady movement of the longship as it glides through the endless sea, a small vessel surrounded by an infinite expanse of water. The watchmen's cloaks flap lightly in the breeze, the faint rustling of fabric blending with the whispers of wind and the distant lapping of the waves. Their breaths rise slowly in soft clouds that vanish into the cool night air, their eyes flicking back and forth across the horizon, alert but unhurried. Below deck, the rest of the crew rests, their slumber deep and undisturbed by the world. Above, the ship creaks softly as it shifts with the movements of the sea, the sounds of its steady rhythm familiar and soothing, a lullaby for those who travel within it. The gentle rocking of the vessel, the rustle of sails in the wind, and The soft splash of water against the hull form a calming symphony, inviting the crew to surrender to the quiet of the night. There is a stillness in the air, a quiet peace that envelops the ship like a blanket, its silence broken only by the occasional sound of the rigging swaying or the movement of the watchman on deck. The sea is vast and unyielding, its surface a mirror that reflects the stars and the moon, but beneath it there is an unknown world, a deep expanse of mystery and wonder that has existed long before man set foot on its shores. The watchmen, though ever vigilant, are aware of the beauty that surrounds them, the steady flow of the water, the way the ship moves with it, the faint shimmer of the moonlight on the waves. They know that this journey is not just a passage through physical space, but through time itself, as they follow in the footsteps of countless others who have sailed these same waters, guided by the same stars. The longship, with its sturdy timbers and steady course, seems to be a part of the sea, as if it has always belonged to these waters. It is both a vessel of purpose and a symbol of peace, its presence on the water as natural as the waves themselves. The watchman's thoughts drift, not to distant lands or the shores of home, but to the journey itself, to the endless cycle of the ocean, the steady passage of time that has carried ships like this one across these waters for centuries. In the silence of the night, they find comfort, not in the promises of land or the allure of distant shores, but in the stillness of the voyage itself. The ocean is not a place to conquer, but a place to navigate, to move through with patience and reverence. The longship, cutting through the water with the precision of a well-oiled machine, is a part of this ancient rhythm, a small part of a much larger, timeless dance between man, nature, and the sea. Time passes slowly, and the watchmen remain steadfast in their posts, ever vigilant, ever silent, part of the ever-moving flow of life on the ocean. The stars above and the ocean below seem infinite, and in this quiet moment, the vastness of the world feels both humbling and comforting. The longship continues its silent voyage, guided by the stars, carried by the rhythm of the sea, and protected by the watchful eyes of those who sail upon it. The night stretches on, calm and unbroken, as the ship sails forward into the vast, unknown, carrying with it the hopes and dreams of those aboard and the quiet strength of those who have come before. The watchmen stand firm, their presence a steady anchor in the vastness of the sea, and the longship moves forward, a symbol of endurance and peace, its course unwavering as it glides silently through the night. The longship drifts steadily through the dark, uncharted waters, its sleek hull gliding effortlessly over the smooth surface of the sea, the rhythmic motion of its journey, a quiet lullaby for those aboard. Above, the sky is a vast, infinite canvas, strewn with stars that twinkle brightly, their light a distant, eternal guide for the voyage. The moon hangs high, casting a soft, ethereal glow over the ocean, illuminating the waves that roll gently beneath the ship's keel, their crests glimmering like liquid silver. The watchmen stand resolute on the deck, their eyes fixed on the horizon, alert for any sign of land, ships, or danger, but their thoughts wander, momentarily caught in the beauty of the night. Wrapped in their cloaks, they feel the chill of the evening air seep into their bones, the crispness of the wind carrying with it the scents of salt water and pine from distant shores, mingling with the faintest trace of dampness from the ocean spray. Their breaths rise slowly in soft clouds, the stillness of the night broken only by the gentle whisper of the wind and the distant, rhythmic sound of the waves lapping against the ship's side. The watchman's senses are heightened in the quiet of the night, each slight movement, each subtle shift in the ocean's rhythm, felt beneath their feet and through the ship's sturdy timbers. They feel the pulse of the sea, the gentle rocking of the longship in harmony with the vast expanse of water beneath them. In these moments, time seems to stretch, They journey forward a slow, steady pulse, unhurried, as if the ship itself is a part of the ocean, and the ocean a part of the ship. Below deck, the rest of the crew sleeps soundly, their bodies lulled by the rocking of the ship and the soft glow of lanterns that flicker gently in the dim quarters. A murmur of their breathing, slow and rhythmic, blends with the creaking of the ship, the familiar sounds offering comfort and security in the midst of the boundless ocean. But the watchmen above are not afforded the luxury of sleep. Their duty is to remain vigilant, to keep watch over the ship and the crew, ensuring that the longship continues its course without disturbance. Their gaze shifts from the horizon to the stars above, their eyes tracing constellations that have guided sailors for centuries, their ancient light a silent, unchanging companion in the vastness of the sea. The constellations seem almost to move with the ship, their patterns altering ever so slightly as the night unfolds, a reminder of the slow passage of time and the enduring cycles of the natural world. The ocean is calm tonight, its surface smooth and undisturbed, a vast mirror reflecting the light of the moon and stars. There is no wind to fill the sails, no storm brewing on the horizon, only the deep, undisturbed quiet of the night, a silence that stretches out endlessly, broken only by the sounds of the ship and the sea. The watchmen stand in this quiet, there, thoughts slowing, their minds sinking into the peaceful rhythm of the journey. Their task is simple, yet important, to ensure the safety and security of the ship and those aboard, to keep the watch and maintain the course. But in the silence of the night, with only the stars and the ocean as witnesses, the watchmen feel a deep sense of connection to the world around them, to the vastness of the sea, and to the timeless rhythm of the ship's voyage. There is no urgency here, no need to rush. The night is long and unbroken, a sacred time of quiet reflection and steady progress. The watchmen breathe deeply, their chests rising and falling in time with the ship's slow, steady motion, each breath a reminder that they are part of something greater, part of a long tradition of sailors who have braved the sea, guided by the same stars and the same ocean. The night stretches on, a tapestry of quiet moments and subtle movements, as the longship continues its voyage beneath the watchful eyes of the stars. Time moves slowly here, in the quiet embrace of the sea, and the watchmen stand firm, knowing that their duty is not just to protect the ship, but to witness the majesty of the journey, to honor the ocean and the stars, and to be a part of this ancient, timeless voyage that will carry them forward into the unknown. The longship sails through the vast, unbroken expanse of the ocean, its wooden frame gliding smoothly over the dark waters with a rhythmic precision that feels almost as if it is part of the sea itself. The moon hangs high in the sky, casting a pale, silvery light that bathes the ship and the waves in an ethereal glow. The stars above twinkle brightly, their distant light guiding the crew onward as they journey through the endless night. There is no wind to fill the sails tonight, yet the ship moves steadily, propelled by the gentle current of the ocean and the slow, steady motion of the waves. The watchmen stand alert on the deck, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of change, but the sea remains calm, its surface smooth and uninterrupted, a perfect reflection of the night sky above. The watchmen's cloaks flutter softly in the breeze, their breaths rising in faint clouds that dissolve quickly into the cool air. Their faces are serious, their attention unwavering as they monitor the vast, empty sea around them. There is something profoundly peaceful about this moment, a deep stillness that fills the ship and the ocean, creating a sense of unity between the two. The watchmen feel as though they are suspended in time, caught between the vastness of the sea and the endless sky, a small part of something much greater than themselves. Below deck, the crew sleeps soundly, their bodies lulled by the gentle sway of the ship. The muffled sounds of their breathing and the occasional shift in position are the only signs of life below deck, while above, the quiet creak of the timbers and the soft rustle of the sails create a soothing symphony that fills the night. The ship feels alive with its own rhythm, each movement a testament to the craftsmanship that brought it into being. It is a vessel of purpose, designed for the journey ahead, and yet it seems to carry the weight of centuries of sailing tradition within its bones. The ocean, too, feels alive, its deep, endless expanse pulsing with the rhythm of nature itself. There is no hurry, no sense of urgency, only the steady, unbroken pulse of the voyage, moving ever forward as the ship follows its course through the darkness. The stars above, ancient and constant, seem to guide the ship in their silent way, their presence a reassurance to the watchman that they are on the right path. Time moves slowly here, as if the very essence of the ocean itself has slowed the passage of hours, allowing the watchman to pause and reflect on their place in the world. The watchman's minds drift, not to distant lands or the promise of adventure, but to the simplicity of the moment. There is comfort in the stillness, in the quiet motion of the longship and the rhythmic pulse of the sea. It is a moment of peace, where the world feels still and calm, untouched by the chaos of the lands they have left behind. As the ship continues its journey, the quiet hum of the ocean beneath them and the steady creak of the ship become a lullaby. For the crew, there is no need for words, no need for conversation. The watchmen simply stand, lost in the vastness of the sea, their thoughts carried away by the gentle rhythm of the voyage. The moon above is their only companion, its light casting long shadows on the water, a silent witness to their passage. The crew below rests undisturbed, their bodies at ease with the motion of the ship, while the watchmen above remain vigilant, ever watchful as the night stretches on. It is a quiet passage, a moment in time suspended between the land and the sea, between the known and the unknown. There are no questions to be asked, only the steady certainty of the journey ahead. The ocean, with all its mysteries and vastness, seems to stretch on forever, and the longship, with its crew aboard, moves steadily through the quiet night, guided by the stars and the rhythm of the sea. The pulse of the ocean is steady and unbroken, a constant reminder of the world they sail through, a world that exists far beyond the reach of human understanding. It is a world that has been here long before them and will remain long after they have passed. For now, though, they are part of it, part of the endless cycle of the sea and sky, moving steadily onward, carried by the quiet pulse of the ocean. The longship continues its serene journey across the calm, dark waters, the soft creak of its wooden frame blending harmoniously with the gentle lapping of the waves against the hull. The air is cool, carrying the faintest scent of salt and pine, filling the lungs of those aboard with each steady breath. The night sky above is a blanket of stars, their light unwavering as they wheel silently across the heavens, casting their gentle glow on the ship and its crew below. The moon, now high in the sky, illuminates the waters with a soft, ethereal light, its reflection dancing gently on the surface of the ocean, a shimmering path guiding the way. The watchmen stand as still as statues, their cloaks wrapped tightly. Against the chill, their faces fixed in quiet concentration as their eyes scan the horizon for any signs of change. They remain ever vigilant, their task simple but essential ensure the ship's safe passage through the night. Yet beneath their calm exterior, there is a quiet, almost imperceptible tension, a feeling that the sea is both vast and mysterious, holding secrets beyond their comprehension. The ocean stretches out endlessly before them, its dark expanse seemingly infinite, a reminder of just how small they are in the grand scheme of things. Their minds, sharp and focused, occasionally drift as they find themselves lost in the majesty of the world around them. The peaceful solitude of the night allows space for reflection, and in the silence, the thoughts of the watchmen wander to their past journeys, the lands they've seen, the people they've met, and the places they've yet to visit. There is no rush, no urgency to their thoughts, only the calm assurance that the journey will unfold as it is meant to. The stars above, ancient and constant, offer silent guidance, their light steady and enduring, just as it has been for countless sailors before them. Below deck, the rest of the crew sleeps soundly, their bodies nestled in the warmth of their shared quarters. The quiet murmur of their breathing fills the space, and the occasional shift of a body or rustle of fabric is the only disruption to the stillness. The lanterns flicker softly, casting a warm, inviting glow on the wooden walls, providing a comforting contrast to the cool, open expanse of the night above. The ship's slow, steady rocking creates a rhythm that lulls the crew into a deep, restful sleep, their minds carried away on the waves of the ocean. But above, the watchmen remain awake, their senses heightened, acutely aware of the stillness that surrounds them. Every movement, every sound seems amplified in the quiet of the night. A distant bird call echoes faintly over the water, a reminder that life persists even in the deepest hours of darkness. The ship's rigging hums softly, with the movement of the wind, the sails hanging limp, waiting for the breeze to fill them once more. Time stretches in these moments, the slow, rhythmic pulse of the ship, a steady companion as the hours pass in silence. The watchmen stand together, their camaraderie unspoken but understood, bound by the shared responsibility of their duty. They take turns speaking in low, quiet voices, sharing brief stories of past voyages, old tales that have been passed down through the generations, their words slow and deliberate, meant not to excite, but to comfort and soothe. The sound of their voices blends with the other noises of the night, creating a gentle symphony of sounds that reverberates softly through the ship. The crew sleeps on, oblivious to the quiet moments above, while the longship continues its journey. Through the night, its course set by the stars and the steady rhythm of the ocean. As the hours pass, the watchmen's minds begin to wander once more, and for a moment, they feel as though they are not simply sailing across the sea, but drifting in time itself. The ocean, timeless and eternal, seems to stretch on forever, its mysteries hidden beneath its surface, its depths unfathomable. The watchmen, in their quiet vigilance, are reminded that they are part of something much greater than themselves, a part of the endless cycle of nature that has been unfolding long before their time and will continue long after they are gone. There is no rush, no need to hurry. The journey unfolds as it should, each moment bringing them closer to their destination. But in the quiet of the night, it is enough simply to be. It is a moment of reflection, a time to pause and appreciate the beauty of the world around them, to feel connected to the ocean, the stars, and the timeless rhythm of the sea. The longship moves steadily, its course unbroken, carried forward by the ocean's steady pulse, its sails still waiting for the wind that will carry it to new lands. The watchmen stand resolute, their eyes trained on the horizon, but in their hearts, they know that the journey is as much about the quiet moments in between as it is about the destination. The sea is a vast, endless expanse, and they are only a small part of it, but in this moment, they are part of something timeless and eternal. The night stretches on, and the longship sails steadily forward, its journey marked not by the miles traveled, but by the quiet moments of reflection that fill the space between them. The longship glides silently across the vast expanse of the ocean, its wooden hull cutting through the still waters with a steady, unhurried grace. Above, the sky stretches endlessly, a deep canvas of indigo, studded with countless stars that seem to shimmer with an ancient light, casting a soft glow upon the waves below. The moon is a pale crescent, hanging low in the sky, its light mingling with the faint glow of the stars, offering just enough illumination to guide the ship through the night. The sea itself is eerily calm, its surface as smooth as glass, reflecting. The sky above, as though the ship is sailing through a mirror, caught between two worlds, one above and one below. The watchmen stand at their posts, their cloaks wrapped tightly against the chill, their eyes fixed on the horizon, alert yet calm. There is no wind tonight, and the sails hang limp, motionless in the still air. The watchmen's breaths rise, in slow, deliberate clouds, dissipating quickly into the night, as their eyes trace the vast, empty stretch of sea that surrounds them. It is a moment of profound stillness, a silence that seems to deepen as the hours pass, broken only by the soft creak of the ship's timbers as it responds to the gentle rocking of the water. Time seems to stretch in this moment, moving slowly, as though the world itself is holding its breath, suspended in this quiet, timeless voyage. Below deck, the rest of the crew sleeps soundly, lulled by the rhythm of the sea and the comforting sway of the longship. The faint sound of their steady breathing can be heard from below, filling the quiet spaces between the creaks of the ship. Lanterns flicker softly, casting their warm, golden light upon the wooden walls of the ship's interior, offering a small measure of warmth and security in the vast, cold night. There is a sense of peace that permeates the ship, as though all is right in the world, and for this brief moment, the crew is safe, sheltered from the dangers of the world outside. On deck, the watchmen stand together in silence, their thoughts wandering with the windless night. Some of them find their minds drifting to memories of home, of the warmth of hearth fires, the laughter of family, and the familiar sights and sounds of the land they left behind. Others reflect on the journey ahead, on the unknown lands they will discover, and the challenges that will surely come. But there is little talk among them, for the stillness of the night requires no words. Each man is lost in his own thoughts, and yet they are connected by the shared experience of the voyage, by the steady, unbroken rhythm of the ship's passage across the ocean. The stars above seem to watch over them, silent and unmoving, their ancient light a constant presence in the vast emptiness of the sea. They have seen countless voyages, countless ships and sailors, and yet they remain unchanged, as if time itself is a concept beyond their reach. The watchmen, too, are but fleeting figures in the grand scheme of things, but in this moment, beneath the silent gaze of the stars, they are part of something much larger than themselves. The ship moves steadily forward, its course guided by the stars, its sails waiting for the wind to fill them once more. The ocean stretches out in every direction, an endless expanse of water and sky, a world that seems both infinite and intimate, vast and small. The longship is but a tiny speck in the vastness of the sea, but it moves forward with purpose, carried by the steady pulse of the ocean. The night passes slowly, the quiet moments stretching into hours as the ship continues its journey. The watchmen take turns at their posts, their vigilance unbroken, as the hours blur together in the rhythm of the voyage. They do not speak much, but the bond between them is palpable, forged in the quiet shared experience of the night watch. There is a sense of comfort in the silence, a sense that the world is at peace, even if only for this brief moment. As the longship sails forward, the stars above seem to grow brighter, their light a soft, reassuring presence in the vast, dark expanse of the ocean. The watchmen continue to stand at their posts, their senses heightened by the stillness, their eyes scanning the horizon, always alert, always ready. But for now, all is calm, and the ship moves steadily on its course, carried by the quiet rhythms of the sea and the silent, unwavering guidance of the stars. It is a moment of tranquility, a moment that belongs to the sea, the ship, and the watchmen who sail through the night beneath the silent stars. Time stretches on, unhurried, as the journey continues, and the longship remains a steadfast presence on the water, a symbol of the enduring strength of those who navigate the seas. The longship moves forward steadily, its course guided by the stars and the unbroken rhythm of the ocean's pulse. Beneath the clear, dark sky, the sea is calm, almost too calm, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting for something to shift. The only sound is the soft, steady slap of the water against the hull, a soothing, unhurried cadence that seems to echo the slow, deliberate movement of the ship. The air is cool and crisp, filled with the tongue of salt water and the faint scent of pine carried by a distant breeze. The stars above are countless, scattered across the heavens in a brilliant display of light, their ancient glow reflecting on the water's surface, creating a shimmering path that stretches out in front of the ship like an ethereal guide leading the way through the vast expanse of the ocean. On deck, the watchmen stand vigilant, their faces illuminated only by the faint moonlight and the distant stars. Wrapped in their cloaks, they keep a quiet, watchful eye on the horizon, scanning for any sign of land or other ships, though the world around them is still and peaceful. Their breaths are slow, measured, rising in soft clouds that dissipate quickly into the cool night air. Time passes slowly in these quiet moments, the hours blending together in a steady, rhythmic flow. There is a sense of peace that hangs in the air, a quiet stillness that permeates everything. The watchmen take turns standing at their posts, the others resting below deck, lulled by the gentle rocking of the ship. Their sleep is deep, unbroken by any sound or movement except for the creaking of the timbers and the occasional flicker of the lanterns that light the dark space below. The longship moves forward with purpose, but in the silence of the night, it seems almost as if the ship is floating in a dream, carried forward not by the sails, but by the very heart of the ocean itself. There is something magical about this moment, something timeless, as if the world itself has paused just long enough to take a deep breath before continuing its endless journey through the vast expanse of the sea. As the hours pass, the quiet beauty of the night deepens, and the watchmen find themselves lost in their thoughts, each one reflecting on the journey they have undertaken. Some of them think of the lands they have left behind, of the families they have sailed away from, of the distant homes they may never see again. Others think of the unknown lands ahead, the mysteries of the sea that await them, and the adventures that lie beyond their horizon. Yet none of these thoughts disturb the peace of the moment. Instead, the quiet hum of the ocean, the soft rustling of the rigging, and the steady rocking of the ship seem to soothe the mind, offering a deep sense of tranquility. The stars continue their slow, majestic journey across the heavens, their light unchanged, unwavering. They are the silent witnesses to the voyages of countless sailors who have passed beneath them, and they will continue to shine long after the longship has completed its journey. In this moment, beneath their silent gaze, there is a sense of connection to something greater, something eternal. The longship glides through the night, its crew moving with practiced ease, each one playing their part in the shared experience of the voyage. But in the stillness of the sea, it is not just the ship and its crew that are moving forward. The ocean itself seems alive, breathing in rhythm with the ship, carrying it forward with an unseen hand, a silent force that guides them on their way. It is a reminder of the power and majesty of the natural world, of the endless cycle of life and death, of the ebb and flow of the tides that have been shaping the seas for millennia. The watchmen remain steadfast at their posts, their vigilance unbroken, but there is a quiet sense of calm that settles over them. They know that their journey, like the ocean itself, is part of something much larger than themselves. As the ship moves steadily forward, the crew is reminded of their place in the world, of their connection to the earth, the sea, and the stars above. And as the night stretches on, the longship continues its journey through the heart of the ocean, carried forward by the ancient rhythms of the world itself, its sails filled with the promise of new lands, new adventures, and the ever-present, ever-unfolding mystery of the sea. The longship cuts through the tranquil waters with a steady, almost rhythmic grace, its hull slicing through the dark expanse of the sea, each movement of the vessel a gentle dance between the wood and the waves. The air is crisp and cool, the scent of salt and pine mingling with the subtle warmth that radiates from the timbers of the ship, offering a delicate contrast to the chill of the night. Above, the sky is vast, a dome of deep indigo stretching endlessly, speckled with stars, that seem to pulse and shimmer in their silent vigil over the sea. The moon, now full and luminous, casts a silver sheen over the water, its light reflecting off the rippling surface like 1,000 tiny diamonds scattered across a dark velvet cloth. The watchmen stand in their usual positions, their cloaks drawn tight against the cold, their faces lit by the soft glow of the moonlight as they gaze out into the endless sea. Their breath rises in faint clouds, dissipating quickly as they exhale, merging with the cool night air. The horizon is clear, stretching far into the distance, an empty, unbroken line where the ocean meets the sky. Yet, in this serene moment, there is a palpable sense of tension, a quiet expectation that something is shifting just beneath the surface of the calm. The watchmen remain vigilant, their senses heightened, as though anticipating a change, though what it might be, they cannot say. Beneath the quietude of the night, the ocean seems to be speaking in whispers, the waves gentle yet deliberate in their rhythm, as though something is moving in the depths, something unseen but very much present. The longship moves steadily onward, its progress unimpeded, yet the watchman cannot shake the feeling that the sea itself is shifting, changing its mood, as if preparing for something to come. Below deck, the crew remains unaware of the tension above, their slumber deep and uninterrupted. The soft murmur of their breathing is the only sound that breaks the silence below, their bodies nestled in the warmth of their quarters, cradled by the slow, steady rocking of the ship. The lanterns flicker faintly, casting shifting shadows against the timber walls, as if the light itself is uncertain, dancing in the uncertain air of the night. The ship creaks softly in response to the water's embrace, its timbers alive with the sensation of the ocean, moving in tune with its undulating pulse. But above deck, the watchmen are alert, feeling the shift in the air, the subtle change in the sea's rhythm that is not immediately perceptible, but nonetheless undeniable. The stars continue to wheel overhead, silent and unchanging. They're ancient, light a constant presence in the sky, a reminder of the vastness of the universe and the fleeting nature of the lives beneath it. Time seems to stretch and contract with each passing moment, the slow passage of hours marked only by the quiet movements of the ship and the rhythmic lap of waves against the hull. The watchmen exchange glances, their thoughts unspoken but shared. In the stillness of the night, they all feel it, the tension that seems to grow with each passing minute, as if the sea is holding its breath, waiting for something to break the silence. The winds, once still, begin to stir faintly, a soft whisper at first, then gradually building, the sails of the longship fluttering ever so slightly, a reminder that the ocean is alive, its moods as unpredictable as the winds that move across its surface. The watchmen feel the change before they see it, the air thickening, the quiet anticipation growing as the ocean stirs beneath them, sending faint ripples across the glassy surface. The stars above seem to shimmer more brightly now, their light flickering as if reflecting the energy that pulses beneath the waves. The longship, though still moving steadily forward, seems to sense the change too, its timbers responding with a subtle creak, a gentle sigh, as it rides the first stirrings of the shifting tide. The watchmen remain at their posts, eyes scanning. The horizon, now filled with the soft glow of the rising wind. There is no sign of immediate danger, yet the air is charged with something more primal, more urgent, as though the sea itself is preparing to reveal something hidden in its depths. The night sky above remains vast and unchanging, yet it feels smaller, somehow, as if the expanse of the universe is narrowed, focusing all attention on the longship as it sails through the shifting waters. The horizon remains unbroken, then sea stretching into infinity, but the watchmen know that the tide is turning, that something is coming, and they are ready for it. The subtle change in the atmosphere stirs something deep within them, an ancient instinct that tells them they are not alone, that the sea, with all its mysteries, is watching, waiting, and now, perhaps, responding to the quiet voyage that has unfolded beneath its stars. As the wind picks up, the longship continues on its course, its path still steady, but with the unmistakable feeling that the journey is about to change course, that the shifting tides of the sea are drawing them toward something unknown, something beyond the horizon. With every passing moment, the watchmen stand in quiet readiness, their eyes fixed on the horizon, the rhythmic pulse of the sea beneath them a constant reminder that they are part of something far greater than themselves, a part of the endless cycle of the ocean, the wind, and the stars. And as the longship sails into the heart of the night, the sea's whispered secrets continue to stir beneath the surface, a promise of what is to come. The shifting tide, once gentle and unseen, has now begun to make its presence felt, and the watchmen know that the journey is far from over. Whatever lies ahead, they are ready to face it, together, beneath the silent, watchful gaze of the stars. The longship sails steadily through the ever-shifting waters, its wooden hull slicing through the waves with quiet precision, guided by the rhythm of the ocean and the whisper of the wind that has begun to stir once more. The sky, though dark, is alive with the dance of stars, their ancient light flickering above, offering a silent but reassuring presence in the vastness of the night. The air is thick with anticipation, the coolness of the sea breeze mingling with the scent of salt, and pine carrying with it an unspoken promise that something is stirring beneath the surface, something that waits in the depths, hidden from sight. The watchmen stand alert, their eyes scanning the horizon, but their senses are drawn deeper now, as though the sea itself is speaking to them in a language older than time. There is no sound of wind, no rustling of sails, and yet the ship moves forward with steady grace, as if drawn by an invisible force. Below deck, the crew sleeps soundly, their dreams woven into the steady rocking of the vessel, lulled by the comforting motion of the ship as it moves across the vast, dark sea. The lanterns flicker faintly in the shadows, casting soft, dancing light upon the timber walls, but there is a sense of unease among the watchmen, a subtle tension that vibrates through the air, carried on the currents of the ocean. The moon hangs low in the sky, its pale light casting an eerie glow over the surface of the sea, illuminating the faint ripples that spread out from the ship's wake. The water is calm, but there is something beneath the surface, something ancient, a stirring in the deep that only the most seasoned sailors can sense. The ship moves steadily on, its course unbroken, but the watchmen know that they are not alone, that something in the depths is watching them, waiting. The stars above, though constant and reassuring, seem distant now, as if the vast sky is closing in, narrowing the focus to the space between the ship and the endless horizon that lies just beyond. Each creak of the ship's timbers, each soft splash of water against the hull, feels amplified in the silence, a reminder that they are not far from something greater, something older than the land they once knew. The night seems to stretch longer now, the hours passing with a slow, deliberate grace, as though time itself is drawn out by the mystery of the sea. The watchmen exchange quiet glances, their thoughts unspoken, but shared in the weight of the moment. They can feel the shift in the air, the subtle pull of the deep ocean, the whispers that rise from the water's surface, stirring the ship as it moved forward into the unknown. As the moon reaches its zenith, the ocean begins to respond, its surface moving in strange, undulating waves that seem to rise and fall in a rhythm of their own. The watchmen's eyes narrow as they focus on the horizon, but they cannot help but glance down at the water, their minds filled with images of things lurking beneath, of ancient creatures and forgotten forces that have seen more than any man could ever hope to. The longship, though steadfast and true, seems to be moving faster now, as if the sea itself is propelling them forward, guiding them deeper into the heart of the mystery. The stillness of the night is shattered only by the occasional splash of water, the eerie sound of something brushing against the hull, but the watchmen do not speak of it. They know better than to acknowledge the deep secrets aloud. There are things in the water, things that are not meant to be seen, but only felt things that dwell in the depths, waiting for the moment when the surface will be disturbed, when the stillness will break, and the hidden things will rise. The watchmen remain vigilant, their breaths slow and measured, eyes fixed on the horizon, but they feel it now, the whisper of the ocean's secrets, the pull of the deep. The sea has changed, its mood shifting, and as the ship moves forward, the watchmen know that they are not merely sailing across the water, but into the heart of something much larger than themselves, something that will reveal itself only when the time is right. The longship's timbers groan softly, responding to the weight of the night and the deepening mystery that surrounds them. They are moving toward something, but what it is remains hidden, a whisper just out of reach, a shadow beneath the surface that beckons them closer with each passing moment. The stars above continue their eternal dance, but below, the sea is shifting, and the watchman can feel the pull of the deep, the weight of the ocean's secrets closing in around them. As the ship sails into the heart of the night, the ocean's whispers grow louder, its ancient voice calling them forward into the unknown. The longship moves ever onward, guided by the steady hand of the crew and the quiet, unseen force of the sea. But the watchmen know that this voyage, this night, will change them. The sea is alive, and it has begun to speak to them. They are no longer simply travelers on the water. They are part of something far older, something far deeper, something that will reveal its mysteries when the time is right. The whispers of the deep continue to echo in the night, and the longship sails ever onward, carried by the silent, ancient rhythm of the ocean. The longship glides through the ocean, its steady rhythm unbroken, as the cool night air seems to grow heavier, laden with the whispers of something unseen. The sea, though calm on the surface, pulses with an energy that can only be felt, not seen, as if the water itself is alive, carrying secrets from the depths that have remained untouched for centuries. The watchmen stand at their posts, their eyes scanning the horizon, but they are also listening to the sea as it shifts. Beneath them, feeling the subtle vibrations that course through the timbers of the ship, as though the ocean is preparing for something to rise. The moon, now a pale crescent in the sky, casts an ethereal light on the water, its glow soft and eerie, as the stars above seem to blink in and out of existence, their light flickering like distant candles. The breeze has picked up, but there is a stillness to it, a coolness that settles into the bones, whispering of things that stir below the surface. The watchmen exchange glances, their expressions serious, but they say nothing. They know better than to speak of the feeling that has settled over them, this unease that has grown steadily over the last few hours. It is not the wind, nor the darkness that unnerves them. It is something in the water, something beneath the ship's hull, a presence that is too subtle to pinpoint, but too strong to ignore. The sound of the waves, once soothing and rhythmic, has changed, taken on an unnatural edge, as if the ocean itself is shifting in its quiet depths, waiting for something to emerge. Below deck, the crew sleeps, unaware of the tension that has risen on the surface, their rest unbroken by the subtle change in the sea's pulse. The gentle rocking of the ship lulls them into a deep sleep, their breathing steady and slow. But for the watchman, the stillness of the night feels like a thin veil stretched taut over something far more dangerous. The air is thick now, as if the very atmosphere is waiting for something to break through the surface, and the ship feels heavier, as though it is being drawn into something, pulled by an unseen force. The longship, despite its sturdy frame, seems vulnerable in the vastness of the sea, as if the very weight of the ocean is pressing down on it, compressing the air and bending the water around it. The watchmen grip their weapons, their fingers trembling slightly in the cold, but they remain silent, their thoughts racing as they continue to scan the horizon, searching for anything that might explain the change in the air, the sea, and the igni sky. The ripples in the water seem to stretch further now, radiating outward from some unseen disturbance in the depths. It is as if the ocean itself is holding its breath, waiting for the moment when something long buried will rise to the surface. The stars above, once distant and reassuring, now seem to loom closer, their light harsh against the darkness, casting strange shadows on the ship's deck, shadows that flicker and shift like ghosts, as if they are alive. The ship creaks softly, in response to the strange pressure building beneath the surface of the sea, the timbers groaning as if they too are aware of the impending change. The long ship moves forward, but the steady pace of its voyage feels somehow slower, as if the sea itself is resisting its passage, pushing back against the course the crew has set. The watchmen remain silent, their eyes narrowed in concentration, their every sense attuned to the subtle shifts in the water and air. They feel it now, the shift that has been creeping up on them, the sensation that something is watching them from the depths, something vast and ancient, waiting for the right moment to rise. The watchmen know that they are not alone out here, that the sea has always held secrets, secrets that no man can truly understand. And tonight, those secrets are being stirred. The wind picks up again, but it is no longer the same gentle breeze that had accompanied the longship's journey. This wind feels colder, more biting, as if it is carrying with it the breath of something far older than the sailors on board. The ship moves on, but it is no longer the same voyage it was just hours ago. There is a sense of urgency now, a feeling that they are being drawn towards something, whether they want to go or not. The night has grown darker, the sky pressing down closer, the stars now more like distant eyes, watching, waiting, as the water beneath them shifts and swells, as though something beneath the surface is stirring, pushing against the calm. The longship continues its journey, but the unease among the watchmen grows with every passing minute. They are no longer simply on a journey across the sea. They are crossing into something far more ancient, far more unknowable, and they can feel it. The sea has not been quiet for them, nor will it be. The watchmen stand firm, their hearts racing as the ship presses forward, drawn towards something that they cannot see, but know is there, just below the surface, waiting. As the long ship sails on, the sound of the waves becomes louder, the ocean's pulse growing stronger, reverberating through the ship's timbers and into their very bones. The deep is waking, and with it, the secrets of the sea that have lain hidden for centuries are about to reveal themselves. The night, though calm in appearance, has become alive with something else, something deep and primal, something that will soon emerge from the depths. The longship, once gliding smoothly through the endless, tranquil sea, now seems to shudder with a quiet tension. as if it too can sense the rising disturbance from the deep. The water beneath the hull no longer moves with the same gentle rhythm. It has become alive with ripples, each one growing larger, more forceful, as though something immense stirs below. The watchmen, their senses heightened and minds alert, exchange brief glances, their unease palpable in the cold night air. Every creak of the ship, every shift in the wind, seems to echo louder than before, reverberating through the timbers with a low, resonant hum. The moon, hanging low in the sky, casts a pale, ghostly light on the water's surface, its reflection distorted by the growing ripples. The stars, once steady companions in the vast darkness, now flicker uneasily, as if caught in the grip of something unseen. The crew, below deck, remains oblivious to the tension above, lulled by the comforting sway of the ship, their steady breaths a stark contrast to the growing unease of those on watch. The longship sails on, but it feels as though the sea itself has begun to move with purpose, pushing against the vessel, resisting its path, as if guiding it toward something far greater than any of them could imagine. The wind howls with increasing intensity, tugging at the rigging, pulling at the sails as though eager to carry the ship forward into the unknown. The watchmen tighten their grips on the ship's railing, eyes now fixed not just on the horizon, but on the ever-shifting water. Beneath, the rhythmic splash of the waves against the hull, once a comforting lullaby, now carries a sense of foreboding. The air grows thick with salt and something else strange, damp smell that carries the weight of the ocean's forgotten depths. It's a scent that speaks of things buried long ago, things that should remain hidden, lost to time. The water around the ship begins to darken, its once clear blue replaced by an almost unnatural depth, as though the ocean has begun to shift from its normal state. The moonlight barely touches the surface now, swallowed by the growing darkness of the sea. Something is coming, something from below, and the ship's course, once steady and true, now seems to be guided by forces far beyond human comprehension. The watchmen hold their ground, their hearts pounding, as the air around them seems to thicken, pressing down on them with an unseen weight. The sea roils with an energy that vibrates through the entire ship, and in that moment, the watchmen realize with a sinking feeling that the ocean is no longer just a body of water. They are sailing over a living, breathing entity, its vast presence stirring beneath them. A distant sound, deep and resonant, echoes from below the water's surface, a low growl or hum reverberating through the ship and into the bones of the crew. It is not the sound of the sea nor the wind, but something older, something that speaks of ancient powers that have long slumbered beneath the ocean's surface. The ship's timbers groan again, louder now, almost in protest, as the water begins to rise in waves that crest higher than before, each one crashing against the hull with increasing force. The once calm night has shifted into something wild, a storm that seems to come not from the sky, but from the ocean itself. The waves swell higher, reaching toward the ship with a strange, purposeful motion, as though something is moving beneath them, pushing against the vessel from below. The watchman's eyes widen in disbelief as the water, once calm and serene, now seems to writhe, swirling in unnatural patterns. The sea is alive in a way that defies nature, and it is beckoning them closer. The longship, sturdy as it is, begins to creak under the strain of the rising waves. The watchmen brace themselves against the rail, their bodies tense, their minds racing as they try to understand what is unfolding before them. The sky above darkens further, as if in response to the deepening chaos below. The stars that had once offered their steady light are now blotted out by the shifting clouds, and the moon seems to hang lower in the sky, casting a shadow that stretches across the ocean, cloaking the ship in an eerie veil. A sudden crack of thunder rips through the air, echoing across the waves like the roar of some great beast. They, Ship is tossed violently by the sudden shift in the sea's mood, and the crew below deck stirs, their peaceful sleep now shattered by the growing tumult above. The watchmen shout orders to the crew, their voices barely audible over the sound of the ocean's growls and the screeching wind. The sails are lowered, and the ship struggles against the force of the waves that crash against it with terrifying force. Yet no matter how the crew fights, the sea seems to have its own will, guiding the longship towards something deep beneath the water, something that is waking, stretching, and reaching for the surface. As the ship battles the growing waves, a shadow appears beneath the surface, moving slowly at first, then gathering speed. It is larger than anything the sailors have ever seen, and its form is indistinct, as if the water itself bends and shifts around it. The watchmen can barely comprehend the shape of it, but they feel its presence, heavy and ominous, as it rises closer to the surface. A terrible silence falls over the ship, broken only by the crashing waves and the deep rumbling that seems to come from the very depths of the ocean. And then, just as the shadow rises to break the surface, the ship is thrown violently to one side by a massive wave, sending the crew scrambling to hold on. The watchmen, though shaken, hold fast to the rails, their eyes locked on the shadow that now breaches the water. The creature from the deep has emerged, and the ocean has begun to reveal its ancient, terrible secrets. The longship, now fully caught in the tumult of the sea, groans and creaks under the force of the rising waves, its sturdy frame buckling as the creature from the deep breaches the surface. The watchmen's hearts race, their breath catching in their throats as the immense shadow looms larger, its form becoming more defined, yet still shrouded in an eerie, almost unnatural darkness. The water churns violently around it, as if the very ocean is reacting to the presence of something ancient, something powerful that has not been seen in countless generations. The shadow takes shape, a massive form rising from the depths, its enormous body writhing beneath the surface like a serpent, its scales glistening in the pale moonlight that breaks through the storm clouds. Its eyes, glowing a faint greenish hue, lock onto the ship, and a deep rumbling sound, like the growl of a creature stirred from an eternal slumber, reverberates through the ship's timbers. The crew, now wide awake and in full panic, scrambles to secure themselves as the waves crash higher, threatening to capsize the vessel. The wind howls, tugging at the sails, but the ship is no match for the overwhelming power of the beast. Water swells rising like a wall on either side of the longship as the creature moves closer, its massive body shifting beneath the surface with terrifying grace. The ship lists to one side, its timbers groaning in protest, and the watchmen shout frantically, trying to steady the vessel, but it feels as though the sea itself is determined to drown them, to pull them into the depths where the beast resides. The creature, now fully emerged from the ocean, towers above the ship, its great head rearing back as it opens its gaping maw, revealing rows of sharp, glistening teeth. The air grows thick with the stench of salt water and decay, and the watchmen can taste the fear in their mouths as the creature stares down at them, its immense size casting a shadow over the longship. Time seems to stretch, the crew frozen in terror as they realize that they are not merely caught in a storm, but are facing an ancient predator, one that has lurked beneath the waves for eons, biding its time. The ship is tossed again, this time violently, as the creature slams its massive tail against the water, sending a wave of energy through the vessel, nearly throwing the crew off their feet. The sails flap wildly in the wind, their ropes snapping as the ship is pushed and pulled by the tumultuous ocean, now alive with the movements of the beast beneath. The watchmen are no longer in control. The ship is at the mercy of the sea and the creature that has risen from its depths. The water churns around the longship as the creature circles, its massive form partially submerged, its eyes gleaming with an intelligence that chills the crew to their core. The watchmen shout orders, but the wind howls too loudly, the waves too high, and the ship is powerless against the creature's presence. Below deck, the crew's panic escalates as they realize the gravity of the situation. The very floor beneath them trembles as the beast moves through the water, its immense weight causing the ocean to rise and fall in rhythm with its movements. Lanterns flicker, casting eerie shadows on the walls, and the ship lurches again, this time with greater force, as though the creature is testing the vessel's strength, probing its defenses. The watchmen, still standing at their posts, feel the crushing weight of fear pressing down on them, but they remain focused, their eyes locked on the creature as it moves ever closer. The night sky, once filled with twinkling stars, is now completely obscured by swirling storm clouds that seem to darken even further, as if the heavens themselves are being drawn into the creature's wake. The sea is alive, its waves crashing higher and higher, each one threatening to engulf the ship entirely. The longship, though a symbol of strength and resilience, seems fragile in comparison to the monster that now looms above it, a force of nature that dwarfs even the mighty vessel. The watchmen shout again, their voices hoarse with urgency, but their words are lost to the roar of the storm and the rising waves. The creature is circling closer now, its great eyes trained on the ship, its massive body undulating beneath the water like a serpent coiled for the kill. The longship crests a wave, only to plunge down into the trough, the ship's timbers screeching in protest as the creature's shadow looms larger, its maw opening wider. The crew below deck holds their breath, waiting for the inevitable impact, but the ship continues to survive, the strength of its design holding it together, though the beast's presence is growing overwhelming. The sea itself seems to scream, its waves rising higher, crashing over the bow of the ship, filling the air with a deafening roar. The watchmen, desperate and shaken, realize that they cannot outrun the creature, cannot escape its wrath. Their only hope is to survive the night, to ride out the storm that this ancient predator has stirred from the deep. The longship is tossed. Again, this time so violently the sails tear free from their ropes, flapping wildly in the wind as the ship is driven by forces far beyond human control. The crew struggles to keep their footing, holding on to anything they can find, as the ship surges forward and then crashes back into the waves, again and again. The beast circles closer still, its massive tail whipping the water into a frenzy, sending waves crashing over the sides of the ship, threatening to pull it under. The watchmen hold their ground, their hearts pounding in their chests as the creature looms overhead, its form nearly blotting out the sky. The ship groans beneath them, the once sturdy vessel beginning to show signs of strain as it battles against the relentless power of the beast. The night has become a battle for survival, a fight against something far older and more powerful than anything they have ever encountered. The sea, once a vast and unknowable expanse, has become a living, breathing thing, and the longship, though built to endure, is now at the mercy of the ancient predator that stirs beneath its hull. The watchmen, gripped by a deep primal fear, realize that they are no longer mere sailors, but prey in a world that has been forgotten by time. The night will not pass quietly, and only one will emerge from the deep, man or beast. The longship creaks and groans under the tremendous pressure as the beast's shadow looms larger, casting a dark veil over the already turbulent sea. The crew, now gripped by terror, struggles to keep the ship afloat as the massive creature thrashes. In the water, its immense body cutting through the waves with terrifying speed. The watchmen, their faces pale with fear, hold tight to the rigging, bracing for what is certain to come. The ship lurches violently to one side as a monstrous tail, crashes into its hull, sending a deafening roar through the night air. The force of the impact knocked several crew members to the deck, their bodies slamming hard against the wooden planks, but there is no time to tend to them now. The longship is barely holding together as the beast's power shakes it to its core. The sails, already battered by the storm, flap wildly in the howling wind, their ropes snapping in the vicious gusts. The ship is slowly sinking, its timbers taking on water as the waves continue to rise higher, engulfing the deck in a violent cascade of frothing sea. The watchmen shout frantic orders, but their voices are drowned out by the sound of the storm and the beast's thrashing. Below deck, the crew is thrown into chaos, desperately scrambling to save themselves as the hull begins to splinter, water flooding the lower chambers. There's no escape, no way out of the dark abyss that now surrounds them. The beast is relentless, its primal hunger driving it to tear at the ship's defenses with savage force. A deafening crash echoes through the night as the creature's massive jaws clamp down on the ship's stern, splintering the wood with a horrifying crack. The ship is torn in two, its wooden frame unable to withstand the monster's strength. Water pours in, flooding the lower decks, and the crew fights to stay afloat amidst the chaos. The night is filled with the sounds of the beast's growls and the desperate cries of men struggling against the rising tide. The longship, once a proud symbol of the crew's strength and resilience, is now a sinking wreck, barely clinging to the surface as the sea roars around it. The beast circles them, its glowing eyes never leaving the shattered ship, its hunger not yet quenched. The watchmen, now drenched and disoriented, attempt to rally the crew, urging them to hold fast, but the panic is contagious. Each wave that crashes over the deck threatens to pull them under, and the ship's final moments are drawing near. The creature is circling ever closer, waiting for its final strike, its jaws poised to snap shut on whatever remains of the vessel. The night has become a nightmare, a struggle for survival against a force of nature so ancient and powerful that no man could hope to defeat it. The longship, its timbers splintering and its sails torn, is sinking into the depths of the ocean, the crew scattered in the chaotic whirlpool of water that pulls them under. The sea, once a vast and serene expanse, has now become a ruthless predator, and the men aboard the longship are nothing more than prey in its relentless grasp. As the beast's form looms ever larger in the water, its cold, dark eyes glowing. With an unsettling hunger, the crew is left with only one hope: survive, or perish in the depths with the ship. The storm continues to rage, its fury unabated as the men fight to keep the beast at bay. There is no time for fear, no room for hesitation. Every man aboard must find the strength to survive, to escape the jaws of the abyssal creature that lurks beneath them. But as the minutes stretch into eternity, it becomes clear that survival may be a fleeting hope, and the longship is destined to be claimed by the depths. The watchmen, their faces drawn with exhaustion and terror, cling to the rigging as the ship shudders under another savage blow from the creature's tail. The sea has swallowed the horizon, and the stars above seem distant and unreachable. The creature's growls reverberate through the water, shaking the very air around them, and the ship's final struggle to stay afloat is nothing more than a battle against the inevitable. The men who once sailed with pride, confident in the strength of their vessel, now find themselves at the mercy of a force far greater than their will to survive. The sea is not merely their enemy, it is their judge, and the beast, its eternal guardian, is the executioner. In these final moments, the watchmen's thoughts are a whirlwind of regret, fear, and longing. They think of their homes, their families, and the shores they may never see again. They think of the lands they sailed to conquer and the lives they sought to build. But now, all that remains is the vast, unforgiving ocean and the dark creature that waits patiently for its feast. With a final lurch, the longship sinks beneath the waves, the mast snapping like a twig, and the deck plunging into the depths. The crew is swept into the sea, their screams drowned by the roar of the storm and the fury of the abyssal monster. The beast, victorious in its hunt, descends back into the dark water, its appetite momentarily sated, but its hunger for destruction never truly satisfied. The sea claims what it has always owned, and the longship becomes another forgotten wreck beneath its surface. And in the deep, where the light of the stars can never reach, the creature waits for its next prey, ready to rise again when the time is right. The ocean, once a vast expanse of mystery, now feels like a prison, its depths swallowing the last remnants of the shattered longship. The survivors, battered and bruised, find themselves struggling against the relentless current, the sea pulling at them with an insatiable hunger. The cold water clings to their skin, numbing their senses and stealing the warmth from their limbs. The storm continues to rage overhead, its fury unabated, as though the heavens themselves are determined to swallow them whole. The men's limbs feel heavy, and their breath comes in ragged gasps as they fight to stay afloat amidst the wreckage. The creature, a monstrous presence that once circled the ship, has now disappeared into the abyss, leaving behind only the echo of its terrifying growl. Yet there is no time to wonder if it will return. Survival is the only thought that remains. In their minds, the Watchmen, those once proud guardians of the longship, now find themselves reduced to mere survivors, struggling against the unrelenting sea that seems to have a mind of its own. The dark waters seem endless, their depths uncharted, and the men have no way of knowing how far they've drifted from the shore, or if they will ever see land again. The moon, now barely visible through the clouds, offers little comfort as it casts an eerie, silvery light upon the tumultuous waves. The survivors cling to pieces of the broken ship, their hands raw and bleeding from the struggle, their bodies bruised and battered from the relentless assault of the ocean. But despite the pain, despite the fear, they continue to fight. The sea is a merciless enemy, but it is also the only thing standing between them and certain death. They do not know if they will make it through the night, or if the sea will claim them as it has claimed so many before. The waves crash around them, threatening to pull them under, yet they hold on, their grips tight, their resolve unyielding. The distant sound of the creature's growls still lingers in their ears, echoing through their minds, a reminder of the danger that lurks beneath the surface. Yet, it is the sea itself that has become the true adversary now. The creature is gone, but the storm rages on, and with it, the fear of the unknown. The darkness that surrounds them is not only that of the night sky, but of the vast, oppressive blackness of the ocean's depths, a place where no light can penetrate, and where no human soul has ever ventured. It is a world that exists outside of time, where the rules of nature are suspended, and where survival is nothing more than a fleeting dream. The men's eyes, straining against the darkness, search the water for any sign of land, any glimpse of hope, but there is nothing, only the endless, undulating waves. The storm roars in their ears, drowning out all other sounds, and the wind howls like a vengeful spirit. They are lost, adrift in a sea of chaos, with no way of knowing which direction to turn. As they float aimlessly, their thoughts turn to the shore they had once known, to the villages they had left behind, and to the families they may never see again. Each wave that crashes over them brings with it a new wave of despair, a reminder that the sea, though once their protector, has become their greatest enemy. They are alone, at the mercy of an ocean that cares nothing for their struggles. The cold has begun to seep into their bones, and the exhaustion weighs heavy on their eyelids, but they dare not close them. They cannot afford to sleep, not with the ocean's deadly embrace surrounding them, not when every passing moment could be their last. But the darkness is all-consuming, and the quiet desperation begins to creep into their minds. It's not just the physical pain that threatens to break them. It's the psychological toll, the isolation, the fear of the unknown. The watchmen, their hands now stiff and numb from the cold, try to console the others, their voices hoarse and low, barely audible over the howling wind. They speak of survival, of hope, of the possibility that land is near, but even they are not sure if they believe it. They only know that they must press on, that they must keep going, no matter how hopeless it seems. For as long as they breathe, there is hope, however faint it may be. But the sea offers no assurances. It is a cold, indifferent force, and its depths are a dark, unfathomable void. They are no longer sailors. They are survivors, clinging to the last vestiges of hope as the night stretches on endlessly. The ship is gone, the crew decimated, and all that remains is the slow, rhythmic motion of the waves. The creatures of the sea are still out there, lurking beneath the surface, but now the men fear the ocean itself more than anything else. The storm rages, the waves rise higher, and the winds howl louder, yet they remain afloat, struggling and fighting for life. The longship is nothing but a distant memory, a fleeting echo of a time when they were a proud, unstoppable force. Now they are nothing more than men adrift, fighting to survive another minute, another hour, another wave. The abyss yawns before them, and they know, in the deepest part of their souls, that they are closer to its cold embrace than ever before. The struggle is no longer about defeating the beast. It is about surviving the sea. The ocean's dark. Heart is closing in, but for now, the men hold on, bound together by their fear and their will to live. Whether they survive the night, whether they find land again, is a question the sea has yet to answer. But in the face of uncertainty, they continue to float, to hold on, to wait for whatever comes next. The cold has become unbearable, gnawing at the men's bones as they float adrift in the vast, merciless ocean. Their once proud ship, now reduced to splintered remnants scattered across the water, has been swallowed by the depths, leaving them with nothing but the remains of their broken journey. The storm has passed, but the sea remains an endless, oppressive expanse stretching out in every direction, and the night, though quieter now, is still filled with a haunting sense of isolation. The survivors, all exhausted beyond measure, cling to pieces of the wreckage, their hands raw and bleeding from the sharp edges of the wood. Their clothes are heavy with water, soaked through, and their faces are grim, their eyes haunted by the endless horizon that offers no relief. The air is thick with salt and the distant sound of the wind, but there is no comfort to be found here, no safe place to rest. The sea offers no solace, only a vast, dark void that seems to stretch on forever, as if mocking their desperate struggle. They had hoped for land, for something, anything, to break the monotony of the water surrounding them. But there is nothing. The stars above offer no guidance. Their once familiar constellations, now lost in the shifting clouds, and the moon, barely visible, casts only a weak, pale light across the waves. The men's thoughts drift, not to past victories or lost battles, but to the aching reality of their situation. They have no food, no water, no clear direction, and the ocean continues to play its cruel game, its waves gently rocking them in. An unsettling lull. Time seems to stretch indefinitely, as if the sea itself is manipulating the very fabric of their lives, slowly erasing all sense of normalcy and hope. The survivors try to speak, but their voices crack and fade into the vastness of the ocean, lost to the howling wind and the rhythmic crash of waves against the wreckage. There is no camaraderie left, only the shared weight of their survival. They do not look at each other. There is nothing to say. The watchmen, once the pillars of strength and leadership, now find themselves struggling to maintain any sense of authority. Their faces are haggard, their eyes sunken from exhaustion, and their thoughts, once sharp and alert, have dulled with the weariness of endless drifting. They no longer feel the weight of the ship beneath their feet, the sensation of purpose and movement that once defined their roles. Now they are nothing more than men adrift on a hostile sea, caught between life and death, their future uncertain, and their fate in the hands of the ocean. The survivors hold on, though they are not sure for how long they can continue to do so. Their bodies ache from the cold, their minds clouded by hunger and thirst, and their spirits, once strong and unyielding, are slowly starting to fray. In the quiet moments, they can hear the faint sound of the water lapping at their floating wreckage, a gentle reminder of the world that has become their prison. The sea does not care for them. It is indifferent to their struggle, offering no help, no mercy. They are mere specks in its vast expanse, insignificant in the grand scheme of its endless shifting tides. The days have blurred together, each one indistinguishable from the last, each hour stretching into infinity. The survivors have lost track of time. How long have they been afloat now? Days? Weeks? It doesn't matter. Time has no meaning here. Only the endless cycle of survival and despair. As the night continues, the cold presses deeper into their skin, and the silence grows more oppressive. The watchmen stand at the edge of the wreckage, their eyes scanning the horizon in vain, hoping for a glimpse of land, a sign of rescue, or even another ship. But there is nothing. The ocean offers no answers, only the reflection of their own desperate faces in the dark waters beneath them. They are alone. And yet, even in the face of such hopelessness, they continue to survive. They continue to float. In these moments of bleak isolation, the men are forced to confront the harsh truth. They are not in control. The ocean is the master now, and they are its prisoners, at its mercy. They are powerless against its vast, unknowable power. The storm may have passed, but the true storm lies within them now, in their minds, in their hearts, in their very souls. The men must find a way to endure, to survive this final trial, or they will be consumed by the sea's unrelenting force. But how much longer can they hold on? How much longer can they withstand the weight of their own fears, their own doubts? In this cruel, empty night, there is no answer. There is only the watch, a silent, unyielding watch as the survivors drift on, their fate sealed by the endless expanse of ocean that surrounds them. The sea has claimed the longship, and now it claims them too, one moment at a time, until there is nothing left but the cold, the darkness, and the silence of the deep. And so they drift on, hoping against hope, holding on to life by the thinnest of threads, waiting for the storm to pass, for a chance to find something beyond the void. But the sea is patient, and the sea is cruel. The watch is endless, and with each passing hour, the survivors feel the weight of their own mortality pressing down on them. The ocean may take them, but for now, they remain afloat survivors of a world that no longer exists. The ocean is still, almost eerily calm now, as if the storm that had raged for what felt like an eternity had exhausted its fury and surrendered to the vast silence of the night. The survivors, their faces gaunt and hollow from days adrift on the unforgiving sea, cling to their makeshift rafts with a sense of fragile hope. The pain of hunger and thirst gnaws at their insides, and their muscles ache with the strain of holding on. The cold has seeped deep into their bones, yet something new stirs within them, an ember of hope, faint but undeniable. As they drift, their eyes flicker toward the horizon, where the first faint light of dawn begins to break through the endless stretch of black sky. The stars, once their guiding companions, fade into the background as the world begins to shift from dark to light. The survivors know, instinctively, that the night is over. The dawn brings with it a strange mixture of relief and anxiety. They are still alone, still adrift on the vast, indifferent sea, but for the first time in what seems like forever, there is the possibility of something new. Perhaps it is land, perhaps it is a ship, or perhaps it is nothing more than another cruel trick played by the endless expanse of ocean. The survivors, their breath shallow and ragged, exchange glances, their eyes filled with uncertainty and a kind of quiet determination. They have seen many false hopes, many false dawns, but this time the horizon feels different. A water that once felt like an unyielding prison now seems to shimmer with a distant promise. The first rays of light touch the ocean's surface, and for a moment the survivors are filled with a profound sense of wonder, as if witnessing something sacred. The darkness that had once been their constant companion begins to retreat, replaced by the soft, golden hues of the morning sky. The wind, though gentle, carries a promise of change. It is as though the earth itself is stirring, stretching its arms after a long, cold night. But the survivors know they cannot let their guard down. This could be the moment that defines whether they live or die, whether they will see the land they have dreamed of, or be swallowed again by the great ocean. The sea, with its endless waves and ruthless power, has shown them no mercy, but now it is as if it is offering them a fleeting chance at redemption. The watchmen, those who once stood tall on the deck of the longship, now sit on their broken rafts, their eyes trained on the horizon, their hearts pounding in their chests. They are not the same men who had sailed proudly on their vessel. They are shadows of the men they once were, their spirits warm and their bodies fatigued. And yet, in this moment, they are driven by something primal survival. It is all that matters now. As the first sliver of the sun rises, they see it, the faint outline of something against the horizon. It is small, distant, and indistinct, but it is there. A shape, a glimmer of something that could be land. The survivors' hearts race, their breaths quickening as they fix their eyes on the shadowy figure. They strain to see, to make out its form, but the distance is too great, the light too weak. For a moment, everything seems to hold its breath, as if the world itself is waiting for the answer. The survivors dare not speak, each man afraid to break the fragile silence that has descended over them. And then, as the light grows stronger, the shape becomes clearer. It is land, no doubt about it. A small rocky outcrop, barely visible against the ocean's vastness, but land nonetheless. The survivors can hardly believe their eyes. Their bodies, aching with exhaustion, seem to forget their pain for a moment. The first rays of the sun, now fully visible in the sky, illuminate the tiny island, casting a golden glow that feels like the touch of salvation itself. The survivors, though weak and broken, now have a purpose. They begin to paddle toward the land, their movements stiff and slow at first, as if the mere act of moving feels like a monumental task. But the sight of the island, however small and distant it may seem, fills them with renewed strength. The darkness of the night is behind them, and for the first time in what feels like forever, they can see a way forward. The waves, once their enemy, now seem like allies, gently pushing them toward the shore. The survivors know that this moment could be their only chance, and they throw everything they have left into it. As they approach the island, the men's eyes fill with tears of relief, of joy, and of the sheer disbelief that they have made it. The land that had seemed so far away, so impossible to reach, is now within their grasp. But even as they close the distance, they know that their ordeal is far from over. The island, small and barren as it may appear from afar, could still be inhospitable, and they have no way of knowing what dangers might lie ahead. Yet for now, all that matters is that they are no longer adrift in the vast, empty sea. They are on their way to something real, something solid, something that promises the possibility of survival. The survivors know that the journey has been long and hard, but this moment, this first light of hope, is enough to remind them that they are not defeated. Not yet. The sea has tried to take them, but it has failed. And now, with the dawn of a new day, they face the promise of life, of land, and of the future that awaits them. The shadows of the past still linger, but the survivors will face them head on, knowing that as long as they have the strength to fight, they will never give in. The island looms closer, and they know that this is their second chance, their lifeline. In the vast, uncaring ocean, the longship may be gone, but the spirit of the crew lives on, stronger than ever, as they paddle toward their uncertain but promising future. The island was small, and as they neared the shore, the survivors couldn't help but feel a strange mix of dread and relief. After so many days adrift, this was their first real encounter with solid land since the storm had ripped their ship apart. The gentle rhythm of the waves lapping against the shore almost mocked their exhaustion. Their bodies sore and hollow, and yet there was a spark of something, the faintest thread of hope, that still held them together. They landed on the soft, sandy beach with trembling hands and legs, struggling to maintain their balance as they disembarked from their rafts. The island was as quiet as it was barren. There were no signs of life, no lush green jungles or inviting streams of fresh water. Instead, it was a small, rocky outcrop, scattered with jagged cliffs and dry, sparse vegetation. The wind howled against the rocks, a cold reminder that they were still at the mercy of nature's cruel whims. Their hunger had not subsided, nor had their thirst. Yet there was something exhilarating about standing on solid ground again, even if it was not the paradise they had imagined during their time adrift. The survivors stood in silence for a moment, staring out at the endless expanse of ocean that stretched beyond them. It was as though the sea had relinquished its hold over them, only to hand them over to the harsh reality of a new challenge. The island, though promising land, was also a place of uncertainty, its bare landscape offering little in the way of comfort or sustenance. They could see no obvious signs of food or fresh water, and the sun, though now high in the sky, did little to warm their shivering bodies. The survivors were no strangers to hardship, but this was something different. It wasn't the gnawing fear of being lost at sea that tormented them now. It was the stark realization that, for all their survival, they had no guarantee that this land would be kind to them. The survivors did what they had done best throughout their ordeal. They adapted. They gathered what little they could from the barren beach driftwood, rocks, and the occasional shell, and began setting up a meager camp. Their bodies ached, and their minds were muddled with the exhaustion of what had been a journey beyond endurance, but they couldn't afford to dwell on it. Not yet. The island might be their refuge, but they knew nothing of what dangers it might hold. It was not the gentle haven they had hoped for, but a testing ground. The sea was no longer their immediate enemy, but the island might be. They searched, not with the same urgency they had when lost at sea, but with a quiet determination. As they trudged across the dry, rocky terrain, their eyes scanned the barren cliffs and low hills. No water, no food, only the merciless wind that swept through the landscape. It felt like a cruel joke. They had escaped the storm, but what was the point if they were to die of thirst or starvation on this forsaken patch of earth? Still, the survivors persisted. One of them, an older man who had once been a carpenter, began to carve out a shelter from the driftwood they had collected. Another, a younger man with broad shoulders and a wiry frame, scoured the shoreline for anything that could be used for fire. A third survivor, a woman who had been silent for much of the journey, began to examine the rocks and cliffs, searching for any signs of fresh water or edible plants. Each survivor, in their own way, tried to reclaim some sense of control over their fate, but it was clear that the island had yet to reveal whether it would be a sanctuary or a grave. The first night on the island was an uneasy one. The survivors sat around a small fire they had managed to spark with what little flammable material they could find. The fire flickered in the wind, its warmth a welcome comfort, but it did little to ease their anxiety. They ate what little they had dried, hard remnants of their previous rations, and drank from the small, brackish pools they found at the island's edge. It was enough to keep them alive for now, but they all knew this was no long-term solution. As they sat around the fire, each person stared into the flames, lost in their own thoughts. Their ordeal on the sea had changed them. All. They were no longer the proud men and women who had once sailed with the wind at their backs and the world before them. Now they were survivors, their bodies marked by the hardships they had endured, their spirits weathered by the relentless pull of the ocean. Their eyes, once filled with the promise of adventure, were now clouded with the somber realization that survival meant more than mere strength. It meant endurance, resilience, and an unwavering will to press forward, even when there seemed to be no hope. The night dragged on, the fire crackling and popping in the silence. The island, though small, felt vast in the darkness, its shadowy cliffs looming around them like silent sentinels. As the hours passed, the survivors spoke little. There was no need to voice their fear. It was already understood. In the morning, they would search for more. They would seek water. They would search for food. They would do what they had always done, endure. But for now, they were grateful for the fire, for the warmth it offered in this strange, inhospitable place. The sea may have released them, but the island held them in its grip. It was a new test, a different kind of struggle. And as the survivors huddled close to the fire, they realized that their journey was far from over. The island had become their battleground, and every day would be a fight for survival. The sun would rise again, and with it, a new set of challenges. But in the light of that new day, the survivors would find their strength once more. They had faced the sea, and now they would face whatever the island could throw at them. And for the first time since the storm had taken them, they were no longer adrift. They were grounded, and the fight for their lives would continue. They had survived the storm. Now they had to survive the island. The sun had barely crested the horizon, casting a soft golden light across the desolate landscape as the survivors set out for another day of searching. Despite their best efforts the day before, the island had yet to reveal its secrets. They were still without fresh water, the salt in their mouths a constant reminder of their desperation. Each step they took on the uneven, rocky terrain seemed to lead them further into a wilderness that felt both oppressive and empty. The air was thick, filled with the constant rustle of dry leaves and the faint, ever-present howling of the wind as it swept across the cliffs. The island seemed to hold its breath, offering little in the way of comfort or hope. They walked in silence, the fatigue of their journey settling deep into their bones, but there was no choice but to continue. The young man who had been the most optimistic of the group led the way, his eyes scanning the ground for any sign of life. He had begun to notice the cracks in the earth-deep, jagged fissures that ran through the landscape like veins. Perhaps there was a hidden source of water deep within the island's rocky core. His thoughts were interrupted by the soft crunch of footsteps behind him. The woman, who had taken to quietly observing the others, was by his side now, her face weathered by the sun and exhaustion, yet her eyes were sharp, calculating. She paused for a moment, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the sea met the sky, a reminder of the world they had left behind. It felt distant now, like a dream that they had once shared, but now, in their struggle, was slipping further and further from their reach. The island was slowly becoming their reality, and with each step, it felt as though they were sinking deeper into its cold embrace. "We need to find something," the young man muttered, his voice hoarse from lack of water. "Anything. There has to be something here." The woman nodded, but said nothing. Her lips were dry, cracked, and her expression was one of quiet determination. She had long stopped hoping for an easy solution, and now she just wanted to survive, however she could. The air was becoming thick with tension, and the survivors knew that time was running out. They needed food, and they needed water. Without those, they would not last another day on this desolate island. But the search for both had led them in circles, each trial more exhausting than the last. As they trudged onward, the wind began to pick up, carrying with it a faint scent, a strange, unfamiliar smell that seemed to drift toward them from the far side of the island. It was earthy, but also sharp, like the scent of decay. The survivors halted, exchanging uncertain glances. The man who had been silently following them for most of the journey now spoke up. "What is that smell?" His voice was filled with both suspicion and curiosity. The woman squinted toward the distant shore, her brow furrowing as she took in the horizon. She had noticed it too, but she couldn't place the odor. It didn't seem natural, and that made her wary. "Let's investigate," the young man said. "It could be something useful, maybe even food." The woman hesitated for a moment, then nodded, though she wasn't entirely convinced. They continued walking, this time with more urgency, heading toward the source of the smell. As they approached the area, the terrain began to change. The rocks grew larger and more jagged, and the dry earth gave way to patches of wet, slippery ground. The air grew heavier, and the smell became more pronounced, its sharpness cutting through the dust in their throats. When they finally rounded a bend in the rocks, what they found was not what they expected. A large, stagnant pool of water lay before them, but it was not the kind of water they had hoped for. The pool was a sickly green, its surface covered in a thin layer of scum, and around it lay remnants of what appeared to be some kind of carcasses, decayed and barely recognizable. The survivors stepped back instinctively, repelled by the sight and the overpowering stench. The pool was dangerous. The water, though it might have appeared like a source of life, was contaminated, teeming with bacteria and rot. It was a stark reminder that not every opportunity was a blessing. The woman's eyes flicked toward the sky, the weight of their isolation pressing down our shoulders. This island, it seemed, offered nothing but endless trials. The man, who had been more hopeful, now looked deflated, his gaze lingering on the foul water. "We can't drink that," he said, his voice almost a whisper. They all knew it was true. It wasn't the answer they had hoped for. And so they turned away from the pool, walking further into the island, further into the unknown. The path they followed became even more treacherous as the ground grew steeper and the rocks became slick with moisture. Their pace slowed as they moved cautiously, mindful of each step. The woman, who had taken the lead now, felt a growing sense of dread. The island was playing with them, leading them deeper into its heart, but it offered no solace. Each passing hour felt like a step further away from salvation. And yet, they had no choice but to continue. The island, with its vast emptiness and unpredictable dangers, had become their prison. But as they pressed on, the woman couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. That something, somewhere, was waiting. The air around them felt thick, as though it were alive with a presence that could not be ignored. She quickened her pace, determined to find something, anything, that would give them the hope they so desperately needed. Time was slipping away, and they could not afford to lose any more of it. They needed to find food. They needed to find water. They needed to survive. The island, however, was not offering them any answers. The long shadows of the cliffs stretched across the ground like fingers reaching out for them, and the silence that enveloped them was deafening. With each step, the weight of their isolation grew heavier, and the island seemed to close in around them, offering no escape. Yet they walked on, driven by the sheer will to survive, determined to conquer whatever this island threw at them. The path ahead was uncertain, but as they pressed forward, they knew that they could not turn back. The reckoning of the sea had brought them here, and now they had to face what awaited them on the desolate path of the island. The island's oppressive silence was finally broken by the sound of footsteps, each one heavier than the last, echoing in the hollow expanse around them. The survivors trudged through the dense underbrush, their feet dragging through the overgrown moss and vines, but their minds were elsewhere. Every now and then, a rustling in the distance would make them freeze in place, hearts pounding, eyes scanning for the unknown. It wasn't just hunger and thirst that haunted them now. It was the strange feeling that they were no longer alone. Every gust of wind through the trees seemed like a whisper, carrying with it the voices of the past, or perhaps the ghosts of those who had walked this same path before them. What was once a faint unease had grown into a gnawing fear, a constant presence at the edge of their thoughts. A young man, leading the group as he had done since the beginning, had become more withdrawn. His face, once filled with the spark of hope, was now clouded with doubt. The woman, who had long since abandoned any pretense of optimism, was the first to notice the change. She saw the way his eyes would dart about, as if searching for something he couldn't find. There was a look in his face, a kind of resignation that unsettled her more than the dead silence of the island. He didn't speak much anymore, and when he did, his words lacked the conviction they once held. The woman wondered if he was beginning to crack under the weight of their isolation, just as she felt herself nearing the edge. The rest of the group followed silently, too exhausted and fearful to engage in conversation. The long days of walking with little to show, for it had worn them down, and the constant fight to find food and water had drained their energy. The heavy air pressed in on them, making each step feel like a weight, dragging them deeper into the earth. They had come to an unsettling realization. They were no longer just surviving the island. They were being consumed by it. Every direction they turned, the island seemed to stretch endlessly, offering no signs of hope, no relief from the torturous cycle of thirst and hunger. It was as if they were walking in circles, moving farther from their goals with each passing day, even as the island closed in around them like an iron trap. It was on the fourth day of this crushing reality that the woman finally saw something that made her pause, her heart skipping a beat. Just beyond the clearing, partially hidden by a thick cluster of trees, was a structure. It was no great fortress or imposing building, but it was enough to stop them in their tracks. The ruins were barely discernible at first, just a few stone, walls crumbling under the weight of time, overgrown with vines and moss. But it was enough. It was a sign that they were not the first to be drawn to this cursed place. A young man was the first to speak, his voice low, as though afraid the island itself might hear him. "What is that?" he asked, his tone hollow with disbelief. "Is it a house?" His eyes searched the ruins, and his hands trembled slightly. The woman stepped closer, her feet slow and deliberate, as if afraid the ground might give way beneath her. The sight of the ruins filled her with a sense of both dread and curiosity, and she had to fight the urge to turn back. What had happened? Here? Who had built this? Were they still here, watching from the shadows? Or had they long since vanished into the soil of the island? The questions weighed heavily on her, but she knew there was no turning back. They had to investigate. "Let's go," she said softly, already moving toward the ruins. The others followed, their steps slower than usual, as if the very act of walking toward the forgotten structure was an omen. They moved through the dense underbrush, their bodies exhausted and their minds weary, until they reached the threshold of the ancient structure. The stone walls, though weathered and broken, still stood as silent sentinels of a time long past. The air around them seemed to hum with an almost tangible energy, as if the ruins themselves were alive, breathing in the darkness. The woman stepped closer to one of the stone walls, running her fingers along the jagged surface. The stone was cold to the touch, and it seemed as though it had been untouched for centuries. Yet there was something familiar about it, a pull that she couldn't explain. A chill ran down her spine as she felt a sudden, unexplainable presence, as though the island had come alive around them. She stepped back, her pulse quickening. "We shouldn't be here," she muttered under her breath, but her words seemed to be swallowed by the oppressive silence. The young man had already moved further inside, his eyes scanning the interior of the structure. He reached out and pushed aside the vines that obscured the entrance, revealing a narrow corridor that led into the depths of the ruins. The others hesitated, but the lure of the unknown was too strong to resist. One by one, they followed him. Inside, the air inside was thick with dust, and the faint smell of decay lingered in the corners. The floor was uneven, and the walls seemed to close in on them as they ventured deeper into the darkened corridor. The woman led the way now, mind focused solely on the path ahead, trying to push away the creeping sense of unease that gnawed at her. Each step seemed to reverberate off the stone walls, echoing in the stillness. As they reached the heart of the structure, they found themselves in a large chamber, the size of which took them by surprise. The room was empty save for the remnants of broken pottery and the faint outline of what could have been a ritualistic symbol etched into the floor. The walls were adorned with faded murals, their colors now barely visible beneath layers of grime. The woman knelt down, brushing away the dust to reveal the shapes beneath. The murals depicted strange, twisted beings that seemed almost human, yet not quite. Their faces were obscured by shadows, their bodies contorted in unnatural ways. The more the woman studied them, the more she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. She didn't understand what the images meant, but she knew one thing for certain. These ruins were not just a remnant of the past. They were a warning. The survivors had ventured too far into the heart of the island, and now they were about to face whatever lay hidden in its depths. What had once been a simple search for water and sustenance had turned into something darker, something far beyond their comprehension. The island had begun to claim them, and the echoes of the forgotten had started to stir. A woman stood, her heart pounding in her chest, and turned toward the others. They were all looking at her now, their faces pale with fear. No one spoke, but in their eyes she saw it, what they had all been avoiding. The island was not just a place. It was alive, and they had awakened it. The moon hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to dance over the surface of the island, as if the land itself were alive. The survivors moved cautiously through the ruins, the oppressive air thick with a sense of unease. There, every step felt heavier, as though the earth beneath them was reluctant to bear their weight. The woman led the way, her senses on high alert as she navigated the dark, crumbling stone paths that seemed to stretch on forever. The others followed, their faces drawn and pale, their eyes flicking nervously between the walls that had begun to close in on them. With every step, the quiet murmur of the island seemed to grow louder, a whisper that reached deep into their souls, urging them to turn back. But they had come too far to turn around now, and the pull of the unknown was far too strong. They had to continue forward, even as the weight of the island's silence pressed in on them. As they moved deeper into the ruins, they began to notice the strange carvings that adorned the wall symbols, that seemed to shift in the dim light, their meanings as elusive as the island itself. The air was thick with the scent of moss and decay, and the sound of their footsteps was muffled by the oppressive quiet. Every now and then, a distant noise would break the silence, a faint scraping sound, the soft shuffle of something unseen. But when they turned to look, there was nothing there. The woman's mind raced as she tried to make sense of it all. The strange figures in the murals, the whispers that seemed to echo off the walls, and the overwhelming sense that something was watching them. It was as if the very island was alive, breathing and shifting with an unseen consciousness. The young man, still leading the group, had grown increasingly quiet. His once confident steps had slowed, and the weight of the island seemed to be taking its toll on him as well. His eyes were haunted, distant, as though he were lost in some private battle. The woman glanced back at him, but he didn't meet her gaze. Instead, he kept his eyes fixed on the path ahead, his jaw clenched tightly as if to keep the growing fear inside. She couldn't blame him. Fear had begun to seep into every corner of their minds, a creeping fog that threatened to suffocate them all. The deeper they went, the more the island seemed to twist, as though it were changing before their very eyes. The stone walls, once rough and jagged, now appeared smoother, as if they had been carved by unseen hands. The flickering light of their torches cast eerie shadows that seemed to move of their own accord, twisting and writhing in the corners of the room. There was no logical explanation for what was happening, no reason for the overwhelming sense of dread that clung to them like a second skin. It was as if they had crossed some invisible threshold, entering a space that existed outside the realm of the living. And yet, there was something undeniably alive about the ruins, something watching, waiting. The woman's breath hitched as she caught sight of something in the distance, a faint glimmer that seemed to pulse with an unnatural light. It was barely visible, just a flicker in the dark, but it was enough to send a jolt of fear through her. She motioned for the others to stop, her heart racing as she stepped closer, the beam of her torch cutting through the gloom. What she saw next made her blood run cold. The flickering light was coming from a large circular stone at the center of the chamber. At first glance, it appeared to be nothing more than an ordinary rock, but upon closer inspection, it was clear that something was etched into its surface. Symbols, strange, unfamiliar shapes glowed faintly, their light shifting and pulsing in rhythm with the quiet whispers that seemed to come from nowhere. The air around the stone felt different, charged with an energy that made her skin prickle. She reached out instinctively, her hand trembling as she moved closer. The moment her fingers brushed against the stone, a sharp pain shot through her, a searing, burning sensation that made her gasp in pain. She jerked her hand back, her breath coming in ragged gasps as she staggered backward. The others were already on edge, their eyes wide with fear as they looked from the stone to the woman. "What happened?" the young man asked, his voice barely a whisper. The woman shook her head, her mind reeling from the strange sensation. "I don't know," she murmured, her voice thick with unease. "But whatever this is, it's not just a stone." They all stood in silence, the only sound the soft rustling of the wind outside the chamber. Then, without warning, the stone began to vibrate, a low hum emanating from its core. The woman felt a jolt of panic shoot through her, and she instinctively stepped back. The hum grew louder, resonating in her chest, making her heart pound in time with its rhythm. The shadows in the room seemed to grow deeper, more oppressive, as if the very darkness was alive, pressing in on them from all sides. The stone began to glow brighter, the symbols now a dazzling array of colors that flickered and shifted like flames in the wind. The air around them crackled with energy, and the whispers that had haunted them since the moment they set foot on. The island grew louder. The voices seemed to rise up from the stone itself, a chorus of voices that had been long forgotten, their words unintelligible, but filled with a sense of urgency. A desperate plea. "We need to get out of here," the woman said, her voice trembling with fear. She turned to the others, but they were rooted to the spot, staring at the stone in awe and terror. It was as if something was calling to them, urging them to stay. But the woman couldn't take it any longer. She turned and ran, her footsteps pounding on the stone floor as she raced down the dark corridor, the others stumbling after her. The air felt thick with the weight of the island, pressing down on them like a physical force, but she didn't dare stop. She had to get out. She had to escape whatever had been awakened. The whispers followed them, growing louder with each step, until it felt like the very walls were closing in. The woman glanced behind her, her eyes wide with terror. The others were still following, but their faces were pale, their eyes wild with fear. They had all felt it, the pull of the island, the draw of the stone. They had all felt the presence. That had been waiting for them. And as they ran, the woman couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, that something, or someone, was following them, lurking just out of sight. The island had claimed them, and now it was time to pay the price. The night had fallen upon the island with a weight that seemed to press down on their shoulders, an oppressive silence filling the air, broken only by the distant crash of waves against jagged rocks. The survivors stumbled through the darkened ruins, their breath ragged and shallow as they moved through the labyrinth of corridors and chambers, searching for any means of escape. But the island seemed to shift beneath their feet, the walls narrowing and expanding with each step, as though it were alive, manipulating their every movement. The woman led the way, her eyes darting nervously around the darkened space, each shadow seeming to stretch and grow longer, more menacing as the darkness closed in around them. Her heart hammered in her chest, a constant reminder of the fear that gripped her, but she pushed on, refusing to stop. There was no turning back now. The young man, once full of bravado, had grown quiet, his face pale and drawn, his eyes haunted by the events they had witnessed. He trailed behind the woman, his steps slow, as though the weight of the island itself had crushed his spirit. The others were close behind, their faces etched with fear and desperation. They had seen too much, felt the island's power pressing against them, and now it seemed there was no way out. They were trapped. The woman's mind raced as she tried to make sense of everything that had happened. The whispers, the glowing stone, the unnatural pull of the island that had drawn them in. She had hoped for an explanation, some sort of reason behind the madness, but the longer they stayed, the less sense it all made. The island wasn't just a place. It was a living, breathing entity, one that had been waiting for them, watching, manipulating. And now it seemed to be closing in, ready to claim them as its next victims. She couldn't allow that to happen. They couldn't let the island win. The young man, his voice barely a whisper, broke the silence. "What is it that we're running from? What do they want?" The woman's heart sank at the question. She didn't have an answer. She had no idea what the island wanted, only that it seemed to demand something from them, something that they couldn't yet understand. "Don't know," she admitted, her voice barely audible. "But we have to keep moving. We can't stop now." Their steps quickened, each of them now in a race against time. The island had already taken so much from them, hope, sanity, and now, it seemed, their very will to survive. The air grew thicker, almost suffocating, as though the island itself were trying to choke the life from them. And yet they couldn't stop. They had no choice but to keep moving forward, praying that the next step would lead them to safety. But the island had other plans. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, a low rumble that seemed to come from deep within the earth. The woman's pulse quickened as she looked around, searching for any sign of what was happening. The walls of the corridor began to shift, groaning as though they were alive, moving in a slow, deliberate motion. The very air seemed to crackle with energy, and for a moment, the woman felt as if the island itself were reaching out to claim them. Its ancient power alive and awake. "Run!" she shouted, pushing forward with all her strength. The others followed, their feet pounding on the stone floor as they raced through the corridor, the sound of the island's shifting stone echoing in their ears. The rumbling grew, louder, and the walls seemed to close in around them, the passage narrowing as though the island were trying to trap them. But still, they pushed on, their fear giving them strength. They could hear the distant crash of waves, but it was no longer a comforting sound. Now it felt like a warning. The woman's mind raced. Were they close to the shore? Could they make it? The thought of the sea, the open water, gave her a small flicker of hope, but it was quickly extinguished as the rumbling grew louder, the walls closing in faster. They were running out of time. The young man's voice broke through the chaos. "It's not going to let us leave, is it?" The woman didn't answer. She couldn't. The truth was too horrible to acknowledge. The island had already claimed them, and now it was time to pay the price. There would be no escape. The walls seemed to move faster now, the ground shaking beneath their feet as if the entire island were alive and angry. And then, without warning, the floor beneath them gave way. The woman gasped, her heart leaping into her throat as the ground crumbled, sending them all tumbling into the darkness below. There was no time to scream, no time to think. All she could do was fall, the darkness, swallowing her whole as the echoes of the island's wrath reverberated in her ears. The crash was deafening, and then silence. The woman lay still, her breath ragged as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. Her body ached, her mind reeling as she struggled to push herself to her feet. The others were scattered. Around her, their faces pale and covered in dust. They had fallen into some sort of cavern, a vast underground chamber that stretched out before them like an abyss. The woman's breath hitched in her chest as she looked around. The walls were lined with strange markings, symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dark, their meaning as elusive as the island itself. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of decay and something else, something ancient. "Where are we?" The young man whispered, his voice barely audible. The woman didn't have an answer, but she knew one thing for certain. They had reached the heart of the island, the place where the whispers had begun, the place where the island's true power lay. And as they stood there, in the heart of the darkness, the woman realized that the true reckoning had only just begun. The cavern stretched before them, an infinite expanse of shadowed rock and the faint glow of ancient symbols etched into the walls, glowing softly as if they were alive, breathing with an unnatural energy. The air was thick with the musty scent of decay and something timeless, ancient, and oppressive. The woman's heart raced, her breath shallow as she surveyed the chamber. Her eyes strained to make out any detail, but the darkness seemed to be alive, shifting and morphing in ways that defied logic. Every step she took felt as though the ground beneath her was shifting, as though the very island was alive and watching. The symbols that lined the cavern walls pulsed with a rhythmic glow, their intricate shapes forming patterns that seemed to swirl and twist in a hypnotic dance. As the group ventured deeper into the cavern, the ground began to tremble beneath them, as though the island itself was awakening. The woman's stomach churned with dread, the realization settling in that they were no longer in control of their fate. The island had chosen them for something that none of them could comprehend. It was drawing them closer to its heart, to the very source of its power. "What is this place?" The young man's voice trembled as he stepped cautiously forward, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," the woman replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I think we've reached the island's core, the place where it all began." The air grew thicker with each step, and the symbols on the walls seemed to come alive, their lines shifting and undulating in ways that defied all reason. The faint hum that filled the chamber grew louder, vibrating through the bones, rattling their teeth. The woman felt it in her chest, the pulse of the island's power coursing through her, a maddening, suffocating force that seemed to be calling to her, drawing her deeper into its grasp. The walls seemed to close in on them, their once sturdy footing now unsteady, as if the very ground was shifting beneath their feet. Every time they tried to move forward, the cavern seemed to stretch, making it impossible to find a direct path. The woman could hear her own heartbeat now, the sound echoing in her ears, louder than the hum of the chamber. She could feel the weight of the island pressing in on her, the ancient energy of the place reaching out, whispering promises in her mind. She wanted to turn back. She wanted to flee, but there was nowhere to run. The island had already claimed them, and the path was set. They could either face what lay ahead, or be consumed by the very force they had tried to escape. The young man's voice broke through the oppressive silence. "What are these markings? They look like some kind of ritual ... Maybe a warning." The woman stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she studied the swirling patterns. The symbols seemed familiar, yet foreign, the lines sharp and intricate, the shapes twisted and ominous. As she stepped closer, her fingers brushed against one of the symbols, and instantly the chamber shook. The walls seemed to ripple, and the ground beneath them trembled with a violent force. The woman gasped, stepping back as the air around them grew dense with energy. She could feel it now, the unmistakable presence of the island's heartbeat, pulsing in time with her own. The symbols weren't just markings. They were a map, a key to unlocking the island's true power. The very essence of the island was buried here, deep within the cavern, and they had just awoken it. The hum grew louder, a low, guttural sound that vibrated through their bodies, shaking them to their core. The woman felt her knees grow weak, the oppressive energy of the place overwhelming her. She could hear the others struggling to stay steady, their breath shallow, each step feeling like they were walking through a dream. And then, suddenly, the darkness parted. In the center of the cavern, a massive stone altar emerged from the floor, its surface etched with the same glowing symbols. The woman's breath caught in her throat as the realization hit her. The altar was the heart of the island. This was where everything began. This was where the power of the island had been born and where it was fed. She could feel it now, a swirling vortex of energy building around them, pulling them toward the altar, as if the very air was alive with the desire to claim them. She wanted to run, to flee, but the pull of the island was undeniable. The altar beckoned, the energy swirling around it stronger than anything they had encountered before. The ground beneath them vibrated violently, and the symbols on the altar seemed to pulse with life, lighting up with an unnatural glow. The woman's vision blurred, the edges of the cavern fading as a cold, strange sensation washed over her. She heard the others calling her name, their voices distant and muffled. But she couldn't move. She couldn't look away from the altar. The island was calling to her, and she could feel its hunger. It was time. The energy surged, and the woman stepped forward, her feet moving without her command, drawn to the stone altar as if by an invisible force. Her heart raced, her thoughts scattered, but there was no turning back. She could feel the power of the island rising, could feel the weight of its history pressing down on her, filling her mind with whispers of ancient rites and forgotten gods. She was the chosen one, the one who would unlock the island's power, the one who would carry its legacy forward. The young man reached for her, But it was too late. The woman placed her hand on the altar, and in that moment, everything changed. The cavern shook violently, and a blinding light erupted from the altar, flooding the chamber with an intensity that threatened to tear them apart. The woman's vision faded, and the last thing she saw before the darkness overtook her was the altar glowing with an unearthly radiance, the power of the island surging through her, consuming her very being. The final reckoning had arrived. The island had claimed them all. The stillness in the cavern was profound, yet the air around them hummed with an unseen energy, thick with ancient power. The moment the woman's hand made contact with the altar, the entire chamber seemed to breathe slowly, deliberately, as though the island itself had exhaled a long-forgotten sigh. Time seemed to stretch and warp, the very fabric of reality bending under the pressure of forces unseen and powers ancient. She could feel the pulse beneath her fingertips, the raw, vibrant pulse of the island's heart, coursing through her veins, flooding her with a sensation both exhilarating and terrifying. Her breath came in short gasps, as though she was drowning, in the immense power now surging within her. The young man and the others could only stand frozen, helpless, their eyes wide with both fear and awe, unable to comprehend the transformation that was taking place. The cavern walls, once dark and cold, began to vibrate with life. The ancient symbols etched deep into the rock glowing fiercely, as if awakened by the touch of a chosen one. A deep rumble, low and thunderous, reverberated throughout the entire island, and the ground beneath their feet shook violently. The island was alive, and its pulse was a thundering reminder of the power they had unknowingly unleashed. The woman could feel it now more than ever, the connection between her and the island, deepening with every passing second. The air was thick with the scent of salt and earth, mingling with something older, something primal. It was as if the island's soul had begun to awaken, and it was reaching out, its tendrils wrapping around her, drawing her deeper into its grasp. A voice, distant and ancient, echoed in her mind, its words unclear, but laced with both warning and beckoning. The young man stepped forward, reaching out to her, his voice strained. "What's happening? Can you hear me?" She opened her mouth to respond, but no sound came. Instead, a wave of vision and memory surged through her, crushing like a tidal wave against her consciousness. Visions of ancient rituals, long-forgotten gods, and the island's first breath emerged in flashes, overwhelming and disorienting. The past and present seemed to collapse into one, and she could feel the weight of the island's long history pressing against her, filling her mind with both the wisdom of the ancients and the terror of what was to come. The symbols on the walls pulsed faster now, their glow intensifying until the chamber was awash in light. The woman felt her own heartbeat quicken, in sync with the rhythm of the island, and as the pulsing grew louder, the earth trembled beneath them once more. It was a call, an invitation, or perhaps a summons. There was no going back. She was no longer just a traveler on the island. She was now part of it. The realization hit her like a lightning strike. She was intertwined with the very essence of the island itself. And yet, with this connection, she could feel the weight of responsibility settling heavily on her shoulders. The young man reached out again, this time shaking her, trying to snap her from the trance-like state she was in. His eyes were wild, filled with fear. "We need to leave. This is wrong. We've unleashed something terrible." But his voice was swallowed by the growing sound of the island's power, the hum rising to an almost unbearable pitch. The walls shook with each pulse, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to ripple like water disturbed by a stone. The island itself was awakening, and it was far more than they had ever imagined. The woman's vision blurred, and suddenly the air around her seemed to grow colder, sharper. She could hear the whispers of the past, the voices of the islands. Long dead, speaking in an unintelligible language that resonated deep within her soul. The island was alive, and its soul was reaching out, not just for her, but for all of them. And then the light from the altar flared brighter, blinding them for a moment, before it dimmed to reveal a figure emerging from the very stone itself. It was a shape, human in form, but not quite human, a being made of the island's essence, its energy, its spirit. It was tall, imposing, with eyes like pools of dark water that reflected nothing but the infinite void of the universe. The air seemed to tremble in its presence. The being spoke, its voice a deep, resonant sound that seemed to echo in every corner of the cavern, its words incomprehensible, but carrying a weight of authority and ancient power. The woman could feel the energy of the island surge, and as the being's gaze fell upon her, she felt her body tremble, her heart pounding, as the full force of the island's consciousness flooded through her. It was as though the being had placed its hand on her soul, claiming her as its own. The vision in her mind grew clearer, and she realized with a sinking feeling that the island had chosen her, not just as a witness, but as a vessel. She was to be the one to carry its power forward, to wield it as its new keeper. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. The island's soul had been bound here, hidden in the depths of the cavern, and now it had found a way to escape. The transformation was not just hers. It was the beginning of something greater. The young man's voice broke through her thoughts. "What's happening to you?" But the woman could no longer hear him. She could only feel the energy of the island surging through her body trembling as it connected her to its very soul. She had become its new heart, and the island's power flowed freely through her veins, filling her with a sense of purpose and terror. The figure that emerged from the altar stepped forward, its eyes locked onto hers, its mouth curling into an expression that could only be described as a smile. The air seemed to shimmer with power as it reached out, its hand resting on her shoulder, its touch cold but electric. The woman's heart pounded in her chest as the island's ancient magic coursed through her, her entire being engulfed by the island's power. She had become the island's new keeper, and the island had awoken. The island's soul had found its vessel, and the age of the island had begun anew. The cavern shook again, more violently this time, as though the island was breathing in, way it hadn't in centuries. And in that moment, as the earth trembled beneath them, the woman realized that the island was no longer a mere place. It was alive. And now it had found its new heart. She was the keeper, and the island's future rested in her hands. The transformation within her continued, a deep, pulsing force that rippled through every fiber of her being, surging with the power of the island itself. She stood motionless, feeling the weight of her new existence press upon her, a responsibility that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The energy flowing through her veins was not just of the earth beneath, her feet or the stone walls surrounding her. It was the lifeblood of the island, an ancient and immense force that transcended time. It spoke to her in a language she had never heard before, its whispers resonating in her mind like the ancient rhythm of the sea, a sound that both calmed and unsettled her. The figure that had materialized before her stood still, its gaze unwavering as it observed her transformation, its presence unyielding and yet strangely comforting. It was not human, not entirely, but it was not malevolent either. Its form seemed to shimmer in the dim light, as if it were part of the very air around them. The figure raised one hand slowly, extending a long, pale finger to point toward the far end of the cavern, where a narrow passage had remained hidden until now. As the figure gestured, the walls around them seemed to shift and groan, revealing the narrow pathway that led deeper into the heart of the island. The woman felt an instinctive pull toward it, her body reacting to the silent call of the island, urging her forward. She took a tentative step, her feet moving on their own accord, as though they were guided by the very essence of the island itself. Her eyes remained fixed on the passageway ahead, her breath shallow as she crossed the threshold into the unknown. Behind her, the others remained silent, watching with a mixture of awe and fear, unsure of what to do next. They had witnessed the change in her, but what could they possibly understand of the enormity of what had just happened? How could they comprehend the weight that now pressed on her shoulders? She was no longer just a part of their world. She had become the island itself, its heartbeat, its voice, its soul. Every step she took seemed to echo with the power of the earth beneath her feet, the ancient power of the island itself, and she could feel it grow stronger with each passing moment. The passageway was narrow, winding deeper into the island's heart, and she moved with purpose, though she was unsure of what awaited her at the end. The further she went, the more the air seemed to change. It grew thick, charged with energy, and the walls around her began to pulse as though they were alive. The ground beneath her feet trembled slightly, and she could feel the heartbeat of the island growing louder, reverberating through her chest, matching the rhythm of her own. It was a reminder of her duty, a reminder that she was no longer just an observer, but the keeper of the island's soul. The figure followed silently behind her, its presence like a shadow that loomed just beyond her awareness, a constant reminder that she was not alone in this transformation. The air grew colder as she moved deeper into the cavern, the sound of the island's heartbeat growing stronger and more intense. She could hear the faint sound of whispers, voices from the past, from those who had come before her, their words unintelligible but filled with urgency. They were calling out to her, urging her onward, as though they, too, had been waiting for this moment, for the awakening of the island's true power. And then, as she rounded a final bend in the path, the walls opened up, revealing a vast chamber that seemed to stretch endlessly before her. In the center of the room was a massive stone pillar, covered in ancient carvings, its surface glowing faintly with a light that was not of this world. She approached it slowly, her heart pounding. In her chest, the power of the island surging within her, urging her forward. As her hand reached out to touch the pillar, the air around her crackled with energy, and she could feel the weight of her responsibility settle upon her like a cloak. The island's soul was now fully intertwined with hers, its ancient power coursing through her veins, and the realization of what she had become hit her with full force. She was no longer just a traveler, no longer just a keeper of secrets. She was the island's heart, its lifeblood, and its future. The power was immense, overwhelming, and it was hers to wield. The figure stood behind her, silent and still, its gaze unwavering as it observed her every move. The chamber was silent now, save for the steady hum of the island's pulse, the faint crackling of the air as the energy around them grew more intense. The woman took a deep breath, her mind clearing as she focused on the task ahead. She could feel the weight of the island's history pressing on her, the countless lives that had come before hers, the ancestors who had left their mark on the land. She was the vessel now, the one who would carry the island's legacy into the future. And yet, as the power surged through her, she felt a deep sadness, a mourning for the things that were lost, for the generations that had come before her and had failed to protect the island's heart. It was a burden that she would carry, but one she was now prepared to face. Her fingers brushed lightly against the stone pillar, and the carvings seemed to shift and change beneath her touch, the ancient symbols coming to life as if they recognized her, as if they acknowledged her new role. The room seemed to breathe with her, the walls pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat, as though the entire chamber was alive, responding to her presence. The air grew warmer, the coldness of the passageway dissipating as she stood there, her hand on the pillar, feeling the full weight of her duty settle over her. The island's power was now hers to command, and she understood that her journey had only just begun. She had become more than just a keeper. She had become a part of the island itself, its spirit, its soul, and she would protect it with everything. She had. The whispers of the past grew louder now, and she could hear them clearly. The voices of those who had come before, urging her onward, reminding her of the sacrifice that had been made, the price that had been paid. She was no longer alone. She had become one with the island, and the weight of her new responsibility was both a gift and a curse. She was the keeper now, and the island's future rested in her hands. The chamber around her seemed to breathe, in time with her heartbeat, and the power of the island surged within her once more. She was ready. The journey had only just begun. With the power of the island surging within her, she stood on the precipice of the unknown, feeling a deep connection to the land beneath her feet, as if she were one with its very essence. The air was thick with ancient energy, every breath she took in filling her with the weight of her responsibility. The transformation had been gradual but undeniable, and now, standing in the heart of the island, she could feel its pulse beneath her skin, as if the island itself was speaking to her in a language older than time. Each step she took felt deliberate, as though the earth itself was guiding her, urging her to move forward, deeper into the depths of its secrets. The figure that had once observed her transformation now stood beside her, its presence both comforting and unsettling, like a silent protector and a harbinger of the unknown. Its gaze was fixed on the distant horizon, as though it could see beyond the veil of time, understanding things that were beyond her grasp. "You are ready," it said softly, its voice echoing in the vast silence that surrounded them. The words felt like a command, and yet there was no force behind them, only a quiet truth that resonated in the deepest parts of her soul. She didn't fully understand what had transpired, but she knew that the island had chosen her, and in that choice there was no turning back. The weight of the world now rested on her shoulders, the very future of the island intertwined with her own. As she gazed out over the land, she saw the faint outline of something far in the distance, hidden beneath the veil of the thick, ancient fog that blanketed the lower lands. It was a place she had not yet visited, a place that held the answers she had been seeking, the final piece of the puzzle. The figure beside her spoke again, its voice soft, yet filled with an undeniable certainty. "You must go there," it urged, its words carrying an air of inevitability. "Only then will you understand the truth." The words lingered in the air, and for a moment she hesitated. The truth? What truth? She had come to the island in search of answers, to understand the mysteries that had been hidden from her for so long, but she hadn't expected this a power beyond her comprehension, a connection to the island itself. The more she learned, the more questions seemed to surface, each one leading her further down a path she was unsure she was ready to walk. Yet there was no choice but to follow the path laid before her. The island had chosen her, and now it was time to see what lay beyond the veil. With a deep breath, she turned away from the figure and made her way toward the distant land. The fog parted as if in response to her will, revealing the path that had been hidden for centuries. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stepped forward, each footfall reverberating through the earth beneath her. The air grew thick with anticipation, as if the island itself was holding its breath, waiting for her to uncover the truth that had been kept hidden for so long. As she walked, the landscape around her began to shift, the familiar terrain giving way to something more ancient, more primal. The trees towered above her, their gnarled roots twisting and winding through the earth, like the veins of the island itself. The air smelled of damp earth and moss, the scent of decay mingling with the fresh, crisp fragrance of the sea. The path seemed to stretch on endlessly, the fog wrapping around her like a shroud, obscuring her vision and heightening her senses. Every step felt like a journey into the unknown, a journey toward something that would change everything. And then, as she rounded a bend in the path, she saw it a massive stone structure rising from the earth, ancient and worn, its surface covered in ivy and moss. The air around it hummed with energy, a vibration that resonated in the very core of her being. She stepped closer, her heart racing as she approached the entrance. The stone was cold to the touch, but as her fingers brushed against it, she felt a warmth spread through her, a sensation of recognition. This place, this structure, had been here long before she had arrived, and it would remain long after she was gone. It was a testament to the island's ancient power, a relic of a time when the land was young, and the secrets it held were still untouched by human hands. As she stepped inside, the air grew thicker, charged with the same energy that had coursed through her since her arrival. The walls were adorned with intricate carvings, symbols, and patterns that seemed to shift and change before her eyes, as though they were alive. She could feel the history of the place pressing against her, the weight of centuries of knowledge and power contained within its walls. It was here, in this ancient temple, that the truth would be revealed to her. The answers she had sought, the mysteries that had plagued her for so long, would finally come to light. But as she moved deeper into the temple, she felt a sense of unease settle in her chest. The further she went, the more the air seemed to pulse with an ancient energy, an energy that was both familiar and foreign. The walls seemed to close in around her, the darkness growing deeper with each step. And then she saw it at the heart of the temple, a pedestal bathed in an eerie, otherworldly light. On the pedestal lay an object, a relic unlike anything she had ever seen. It was small, no bigger than her palm, but it radiated with a power so immense, so pure, that it took her breath away. This was the source of the island's power, the key to unlocking its secrets. She reached out, her hand trembling as she touched the relic. The moment her fingers made contact, the world around her seemed to shatter, the temple's walls disintegrating into dust as if they were never there. She was no longer in the temple, but standing at the edge of the island, the relic, in her hand glowing with an intensity that matched the sun itself. And as the truth washed over her, she understood. She understood the burden of the island's power, the weight of its secrets, and the responsibility that had now been thrust upon her. The island was alive, and it had chosen her to protect it. The figure that had guided her here appeared once more, standing beside her as the final truth was revealed. "The island is yours to protect," it said, its voice carrying the weight of eternity. "You are the keeper now. The island's soul, its power, its legacy is all yours to guard." And in that moment, she knew that her journey had only just begun. The island's future rested in her hands, and she would stop at nothing to protect it. The island's pulse resonated through her veins, its presence a constant, overwhelming force, as if the very essence of the land and its mysteries were now bound to her. She stood alone, gazing out at the vast expanse of the ocean that surrounded the island, her mind swirling with the weight of her new role. The relic in her hand thrummed with a power that felt both comforting and unnerving, as though it was an extension of herself, her heartbeat, her thoughts, her destiny. In the distance, the waves crashed against the shore with a deafening roar, but in her mind, there was nothing but silence. The ancient temple, the place where everything had changed, was now a memory, its crumbled stone walls scattered like forgotten fragments of history. Yet, the truth it had revealed was still fresh in her mind, its implications now woven into the fabric of her being. The power of the island, The responsibility she had inherited was something she could no longer ignore. It was hers to protect, to nurture, and yet, as the weight of that responsibility settled in her chest, she felt an overwhelming sense of isolation. The people she had known, the life she had once led, seemed so distant now, like an old dream fading away into the recesses of her memory. There was no going back. The island had chosen her, and she had accepted its calling. But the question remained, could she bear the burden? The figure that had guided her throughout her journey appeared before her, its presence as solid and unyielding as the land beneath their feet. "You are the keeper now," it said, its voice a low murmur carried by the wind. "The islands, secrets, its power, its soul, these are now yours to safeguard. But understand, with great power comes great cost." She looked into the figure's eyes, searching for any hint of uncertainty, any sign that this burden could be shared. But there was none. The figure's gaze was steady, unwavering, as if it had long ago come to terms with the weight of its own role. The island had always been a living, breathing entity, its existence intertwined with the people who inhabited it. And now, that same connection had passed to her. She had become the island's protector, its custodian, its lifeblood. But in doing so, she had also become the island's prisoner. "You must never allow the island's power to fall into the wrong hands," the figure continued. "The secrets hidden here are not meant for all. There are forces beyond this land, forces that would seek to exploit what lies within." Its words rang in her ears, the truth of them sinking deep into her soul. She had already felt the stirrings of those forces, lurking just beyond the island's shores, waiting for the right moment to strike. She had seen glimpses of their presence, felt their eyes watching her every move. But it was until now, standing at the precipice of her new life, that she fully understood the danger they posed. The island's power was not just a gift, it was a weapon, one that could destroy as easily as it could protect. And it was her duty to ensure that it was never used for evil. But how could she stand alone against such forces? How could she protect the island, its people, and its legacy when she had only just begun to understand the depths of its power? The island was vast, its mysteries infinite, and she felt as though she were standing on the edge of a great unknown. The future was uncertain, and yet, in her heart, she knew that there was no turning back. Her path had been set. "You are not alone," the figure said, as if reading her thoughts. "The island will guide you. It has always guided its keepers." The figure's words were both comforting and haunting. She had felt the island's pulse, had sensed its presence deep within her, but could she truly trust in its guidance? The relic in her hand pulsed with a steady rhythm, as though it were alive, as though it were waiting for her to make the next move. It was a symbol of her new role, a physical manifestation of her connection to the island. But it was also a reminder of the responsibility she now carried. She could feel the weight of it pressing down on her, each beat of her heart echoing through the land, each breath drawing her deeper into the island's embrace. There was no escaping it. She was bound to the island, its power, its people, and its legacy. As the wind picked up, rustling the leaves of the ancient trees that surrounded her, she closed her eyes, feeling the island's energy course through her. She had a duty, now not just to herself, but to the island and its people. She had been chosen, and it was up to her to honor that choice. But what would the cost be? What would it take to protect the island and keep its secrets hidden from those who would seek to destroy it? These questions lingered in her mind as she stood there, her feet planted firmly on the earth, the relic pulsing with power in her hand. The answers were still out of reach, but she knew that they would come in time. The island had its secrets, and she would uncover them all. She had no choice. The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the whispers of the past, the voices of those who had come before her. She could feel their presence, their wisdom, their strength, and she knew that they would guide her, just as the island had guided them. She was not alone. The island was alive, and it would help her protect its legacy. And so, with the weight of her new role settling into her bones, she turned toward the horizon, her eyes fixed on the unknown future that awaited her. The island had chosen her, and she would rise to meet its challenges, no matter the cost. The moon hung low over the horizon, casting a silver veil across the ocean that stretched endlessly before her. She stood on the cliff's edge, the ancient relic in her hand glowing softly, its rhythmic pulse mirroring her own heartbeat. Winds had quieted, leaving the world in a stillness that was almost too perfect, too serene. Everything had led to this moment: the trials, the sacrifices, the isolation, and the unspoken understanding that she was the last guardian of the island's secrets. The stars above twinkled with an ancient light, their quiet presence a reminder that the island had always been here, watching, waiting, guiding. Her journey had been long, and now, as the final moments of her reign as keeper approached, she felt the weight of the island's power settle deeply within her soul. For a time, she had feared this moment, fearing what it meant for the island's future, for her future. But now, as she stood there, gazing out at the vast expanse of sea, she understood. This was not the end. It was the beginning of something more, something timeless. The island had chosen her to protect it, but she had also learned something invaluable. It was not just a place, not just the relics or the ancient powers. It was a living, breathing entity, an extension of the earth itself. And it was in her. Care now. The final test had come, and she had passed. Her hand tightened around the relic, feeling its warmth radiate through her palm, and in that instant, she knew that the island had accepted her fully. The earth beneath her feet hummed with life, and she felt it all: the pulse of the trees, the rustle of the leaves, the movement of the sea, and the breath of the sky. She was no longer just its keeper. She was a part of it, and it was a part of her. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath as she allowed the peace to wash over her. The island had prepared her for this, for the moment when she would no longer need to fear the future, when she would embrace her role, not out of duty, but out of love. Love for the land, for the people, for the ancient power that had shaped her life. "It's time," she whispered to herself, her voice barely audible against the backdrop of the night. The wind shifted, and a single leaf drifted down from the ancient tree behind her, landing softly on the ground. She reached down, picking it up, and in that simple motion, a sense of finality settled in her heart. The island was in balance now, its power secure in her hands, and her time as its protector had come full circle. But there would always be more challenges ahead, more threats to guard against, more mysteries to unravel. And she would face them, just as she had faced every obstacle in her journey. The island had made her strong, and she was ready. She took one last look at the horizon, where the first light of dawn began to creep over the sea, and with a final breath, she closed her eyes. The world would change, but she would remain a constant standing at the crossroads of time, the keeper of the island's heart. The legacy was hers to carry, and as the island's final embrace surrounded her, she knew with certainty that it was her purpose to protect it for as long as the earth itself endured. She smiled softly to herself, knowing that she would always be a part of it. The journey had ended, but the story would live on forever, in the heart of the island and in the soul of its keeper.